The crystal champagne flute catches the afternoon sunlight as Mom raises it high at our family reunion. 50 relatives fall silent in the Riverside Country Club garden. She points directly at my sister Emma and announces with tears in her eyes that Emma is the daughter who truly loves them. Then her gaze finds me across the crowded patio. The words that follow feel like ice water down my spine. 9 years of secret sacrifices, and this is how she sees me. I should have seen this moment coming from miles away like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. The foundation for today's humiliation was laid decades ago, back when Emma and I were just kids, trying to figure out where we fit in our family's ecosystem. Emma was born to perform. From the moment she could walk, she was the star of every show our family attended. Dance recitals where she twirled in pink tutus while Mom beamed from the front row. Beauty pageants where she mastered the art of the fake smile and the practiced wave. Her report cards came home decorated with gold stars and smiley faces, immediately earning prime real estate on our refrigerator door. I was different. Where Emma sparkled, I observed. Where she demanded attention, I found comfort in quiet corners with my books. By high school, I was working part-time at the local bookstore, saving every penny, while Emma attended private SAT tutoring sessions that cost more than I made in a month. The day my acceptance letter arrived from State University changed nothing. I remember running into the kitchen envelope trembling in my 17-year-old hands, full scholarship letter spread across the counter like a winning lottery ticket. Mom glanced at it briefly, patted my shoulder absently, and said, "Emma deserved something like that more because she tried harder." The words burrowed under my skin like splinters I'd spend years trying to dig out. College became my escape route. 4 years of accounting classes, internships, late nights studying in the library while my roommates partied. I graduated summa cum laude, landed a job at Peterson Financial Services, and thought maybe now I'd earned my place at the family table. I was 23 when everything shifted. Dad had asked me to grab his jacket from his truck while he grilled burgers at Emma's college graduation party. That's when I saw them 3 foreclosure notices wedged between his seat cushions, red lettering screaming warnings about missed payments. My stomach dropped to my feet. Later that night, after everyone had gone home and Emma's graduation gifts were piled high in the living room, I cornered Dad in the garage. His hands shook as he explained how the construction business had been hemorrhaging money. The housing crisis hit them hard. Too proud to declare bankruptcy, too stubborn to ask for help, they'd been juggling bills like hot potatoes. I made a decision that would define the next 9 years of my life. The next morning, I set up automatic transfers from my checking account. $500 here for the mortgage, $300 there for utilities, another $200 for insurance. I routed them through different payment services, made them look like system credits or rebates. I knew their pride would never accept direct help from their youngest daughter. The secret grew heavier each month. I furnished my studio apartment with thrift store finds while ensuring my parents kept their home. I packed lunches of ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches while they ate pot roast and fresh vegetables bought with grocery money that mysteriously appeared in Mom's account. Then came the announcement that would test my resolve like nothing before. Emma burst through their front door on a Sunday afternoon diamond ring, catching light like a disco ball. She'd been dating Bradley Whitmore for 6 months. Son of a commercial real estate developer, drove a Mercedes, had that kind of confident smile that came from never worrying about money. "We're getting married," Emma squealed, and Mom immediately started crying happy tears. Within minutes, they were deep in wedding planning mode. Country club receptions, designer dresses, flowers flown in from Ecuador. I sat on the worn couch, mental calculator, tallying numbers that would crush what remained of my parents' finances. "We'll make it work," Mom said, eyes shining with determination. "Our baby girl deserves the perfect wedding." That night, I increased my automatic payments. My savings account dwindled as their wedding fund grew. Emma had no idea her fairy tale was being subsidized by the sister she barely acknowledged, the one who lived across town, but might as well have been invisible. The twist of the knife came 3 weeks later when I overheard Emma on the phone with her best friend. "Bradley's family is being so generous with the wedding. They're basically paying for everything because they know my parents are struggling. Isn't that sweet? She was taking credit for money that didn't exist for generosity that wasn't theirs to give, while I sat at my desk past midnight doing freelance bookkeeping to make ends meet. But I swallowed the bitter pill and kept my silence. After all, that's what invisible daughters do best. 3 years slipped through my fingers like water each month, marked by the automatic deductions that had become as routine as breathing. My studio apartment on Maple Street was 400 square feet of carefully managed space. The Murphy bed creaked when I pulled it down each night, and the kitchen was so small I could touch both walls with my arms spread. But it was mine, or at least it was rented in my name while most of my salary flowed elsewhere. My Honda Civic had crossed the 15-year mark, its paint fading from navy to a color I called tired blue. The check engine light had become a permanent fixture on my dashboard, an amber reminder of repairs I couldn't afford. Meanwhile, I'd scroll through Emma's Instagram feed during my lunch breaks, watching her pose next to her new BMW hashtags, like blessed and grateful decorating posts about designer handbags Mom had gifted her. What Emma didn't know, what none of them knew, was that those gifts came from credit cards I was quietly paying off. Mom would max them out on Emma's essentials, and the statements would arrive at my parents' house like ticking time bombs. I'd intercept them during my weekly visits, pay them online from my phone while Mom made coffee in the kitchen. The refrigerator crisis happened on a Tuesday. Mom called me sobbing because the ancient Kenmore had finally given up leaving puddles of defrosted ice cream on their kitchen floor. Dad was at a job site, she said, and didn't know yet. The panic in her voice over a dead appliance told me everything about their financial state. Don't worry, I soothed. Sometimes stores have those promotional giveaways. Let me check something. 2 hours later, a brand new stainless steel refrigerator was scheduled for delivery. I'd convinced the appliance store manager to say it was a customer appreciation random selection when they called. Mom never questioned her sudden good fortune. She was too busy calling Emma to brag about winning something for once in her life. Dad's back surgery came 6 months later. Years of construction work had compressed his spine until he could barely stand straight. The surgery was successful, but the bills were astronomical. Insurance covered what they called reasonable amounts, leaving unreasonable amounts for a family already drowning. I became an expert at medical billing negotiation. Hours on the phone with hospital administrators, payment plan arrangements, mysterious billing adjustments that appeared on their accounts. I'd do this from my car during lunch breaks, windows cracked for air spreadsheets balanced on my steering wheel. Emma, meanwhile, had launched what she called her lifestyle brand. Her blog, Living Lavishly with Emma, featured posts about self-care routines that cost more than my rent and investment pieces that would supposedly last forever. Mom shared every post on Facebook with comments like, "So proud of my entrepreneur daughter." The cruel irony wasn't lost on me. While Emma photographed herself in a $2,000 coat Mom had bought her, I was wearing the same 3 professional outfits on rotation at work, hoping no one noticed. While she wrote about the importance of treating yourself, I was treating my parents' financial hemorrhaging with Band-Aids made of my own dreams. One evening, I stopped by my parents' house to drop off groceries I claimed I'd bought too much of. Emma's Range Rover was in the driveway. She'd upgraded from the BMW because Bradley thought it looked more family appropriate. I could hear them laughing in the dining room. "Elisa," Emma called out when I entered with grocery bags. Perfect timing. I was just telling Mom and Dad about this amazing investment opportunity. Bradley's friend is starting a wellness retreat center, and they're looking for initial investors. Only $50,000 minimum buy-in. I watched my parents exchange glances, saw Dad's jaw tighten, the way it did when money came up. Mom's fingers twisted her wedding ring, a nervous habit that had worn the gold thin over the years. "That sounds interesting," Mom said carefully. Emma waved her manicured hand dismissively. "I know it's a lot, but Bradley says his family might be able to help you guys out with a loan. Isn't that generous? I mean, I told him how you've been struggling a bit since Dad's surgery." The words hit me like a physical blow. She was discussing our parents' finances with her in-laws, portraying them as charity cases, while I bled money in silence. But what came next was worse. Actually, Emma continued checking her phone. Bradley's mom mentioned they know someone at the bank who could help refinance your mortgage. Maybe free up some cash, I could set up a meeting. I gripped the counter-edge knuckles white. They'd already refinanced once. Another would bury them completely, but I couldn't speak up without revealing everything. "Well, think about it," Dad said quietly, and I recognized the defeat in his voice. Later, as I unpacked groceries into their new refrigerator, I heard Emma in the living room on a video call. "Yeah, my parents are considering it," she said brightly. "Though honestly, between you and me, I think it's really Bradley's family helping them stay afloat these days. They've been so generous with financial advice and connections." I closed the refrigerator door and leaned my forehead against its cool surface. Emma was rewriting history in real time, casting herself and her husband's family as the saviors while I remained the absent daughter who never helped. The truth sat like a stone in my throat, but I swallowed it down like I always did. That night, I sat in my car outside their house for an hour watching the lights go out one by one. My phone showed my bank balance smaller than it should be for someone my age with my job, but behind that number was a different kind of wealth. The knowledge that my parents still had a roof over their heads, food in their refrigerator, and dignity intact. Even if they'd never know who really kept them there. The burgundy velvet box sat on my coffee table for 3 days before I could bring myself to touch it. Marcus had proposed on the walking bridge at Riverside Park, the same place we'd had our first kiss 2 years earlier. His eyes had been so full of hope and love as he knelt on one knee, his voice steady despite the way his hands shook. "Elisa, you're the most selfless person I know," he'd said. "Let me be selfish enough to want you forever." The ring was modest but perfect, a simple solitaire that caught the light like captured starlight. Everything I dreamed of since I was a little girl playing wedding with Emma's old Barbies. But dreams cost money, and money was something I'd been hemorrhaging for 6 years. I wore the ring for exactly 1 week before I had to break his heart. "I'm just not ready." I told him over dinner at his apartment, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. Maybe in a year or two. The confusion and hurt that flickered across his face made me want to tell him everything. How I'd already calculated that even a courthouse wedding would mean 3 months of missed payments. How my parents' roof needed replacing and their car was making expensive noises. How Emma's lifestyle was still being subsidized by credit cards with my parents' names on them. But I kept my silence and handed back the ring. Marcus, to his credit, didn't push. He slipped the box into his pocket and reached for my hand instead. "I'll wait," he said simply. "You're worth waiting for." Those words followed me home, echoing in my empty apartment, where I sat at my desk and reshuffled numbers that never added up in my favor. The second job came 2 weeks later, a cleaning company that needed someone to do their books. 20 hours a week on top of my full-time position at Peterson Financial. My days blurred together. Office from 8 to 5, quick dinner of whatever was on sale at the grocery store, then bookkeeping until midnight. Weekends meant catching up on both jobs while fielding calls from Mom about Emma's pregnancy journey. "She's having such a hard time," Mom would sigh. "Morning sickness all day long. We bought her one of those pregnancy pillows. Have you seen them? $200, but anything to help our baby girl be comfortable." I made appropriate sympathetic noises while calculating how much that pillow had really cost me. Everything had a double price tag now. What it cost them and what it cost me to cover their inevitable shortfalls. The first sign of my body's rebellion came on a Wednesday. I stood up from my desk at work and the world tilted sideways. My assistant Janet caught my arm as I swayed. "Honey, when's the last time you ate?" she asked, motherly concern creasing her forehead. I couldn't remember. Monday, Tuesday. The days ran together like watercolors in rain. Marcus started noticing too. Date nights became interrogations disguised as concern. Why did I have dark circles under my eyes? Why did I keep canceling plans? Why did my hands shake when I reached for my coffee? "I'm fine." became my refrain, a two-word fortress I'd built around the truth. Then came the call that shattered my carefully maintained equilibrium. Mom's voice was bright with excitement. "Elisa, wonderful news. We're going to be able to help Emma and Bradley with their new house." My stomach dropped. "What?" "We took out a second mortgage. The bank approved us yesterday. Isn't that fantastic? Emma found this gorgeous colonial in Westfield, and they just needed a little help with the down payment. 20% is so much these days." I sat down hard on my office chair, phone pressed to my ear like a lifeline to a sinking ship. They'd borrowed against the house I'd been killing myself to save. For Emma. Always for Emma. How much, I managed to ask. "Oh, don't worry about the details. Your father handled everything. We can manage the payments just fine." But I knew better. I'd seen their finances. Without my help, they couldn't manage their existing bills, let alone double their mortgage payment. The math was crushing in its simplicity. I'd need to find another $1,000 a month or watch them lose everything. That night, I called in sick to my second job and lay on my bathroom floor, cool tiles against my burning cheek. My body was screaming what my voice couldn't enough, but there was no enough when it came to family, no limit to what a good daughter should sacrifice. Marcus found me there at midnight when he used his spare key to check on me after I didn't answer his calls. "Jesus, Elisa," he breathed, kneeling beside me. "What's happening to you?" "Just tired," I mumbled, letting him help me to bed. He stayed that night holding me while I pretended to sleep. I could feel him studying me in the darkness, trying to solve the puzzle I'd become. But some puzzles were meant to stay in pieces, especially when putting them together would reveal a picture too painful to share. The next morning he made breakfast, eggs and toast that tasted like sawdust in my mouth. "We need to talk," he said gently. "About what?" I pushed food around my plate, avoiding his eyes. "About whatever's eating you alive. You're disappearing, Elisa. Right in front of me, you're fading away, and I don't know how to help if you won't let me in." The weight of his love pressed against the walls I'd built. For one moment, I almost cracked. Almost told him about the thousands of dollars, the secret payments, the way I was drowning so my family could float. Instead, I smiled and lied. "It's just work stress. Year-end reports. It'll calm down soon." He didn't believe me. I could see it in the way his jaw tightened, the way his fingers drummed against the table. But he nodded and changed the subject, and I added his disappointment to the growing pile of things I carried. 2 weeks later, my body made the decision my mind couldn't. The collapse happened at 3 p.m, right in the middle of a meeting about quarterly projections. One moment I was pointing at a spreadsheet, the next I was on the floor, fluorescent lights spinning above me like disco balls from hell. I woke up in the hospital with an IV in my arm and Marcus in the chair beside my bed. His face was a map of worry lines I'd never noticed before. "Exhaustion and dehydration," he said before I could ask. "The doctor wants to run more tests, something about your cortisol levels being through the roof." I closed my eyes, already calculating how much this would cost. Hospital bills on top of everything else. Maybe I could negotiate a payment plan, spread it out over months. "I called your parents," Marcus added quietly. My eyes snapped open. "What?" "You're in the hospital, Elisa. Of course I called them." But they hadn't come. I could see it in his face, the careful way he wasn't meeting my eyes. They hadn't come because Emma needed them more. Emma always needed them more. "The nurse who called said Emma answered," he continued. "She said you were probably being dramatic." The words hung between us like a sword waiting to fall. Marcus's hands clenched and unclenched in his lap, and I recognized the anger he was trying to contain. "It's fine," I said, the familiar lie rolling off my tongue. "It's not fine." The explosion came suddenly, Marcus on his feet, pacing the small room. "Nothing about this is fine. You're killing yourself, and for what? For people who can't even be bothered to visit when you're in the hospital." "You don't understand," I whispered. "Then help me understand." He whirled to face me, tears in his eyes. "Please, Elisa, whatever this is, we can face it together, but you have to let me in." I looked at him, really looked at him. This good man who loved me, who wanted to build a future with me, who deserved so much more than the hollow shell I was becoming. And for the second time in a month, I broke his heart. "I can't," I said simply. "I just can't." He stood there for a long moment, shoulders sagging under the weight of my rejection. Then he nodded, kissed my forehead gently, and walked out of the room. I spent 2 nights in the hospital tubes feeding me the nutrition I'd been denying myself. Mom finally called on the second day, full of apologies about not visiting. "Emma's having such terrible morning sickness," she explained. "We've been taking shifts staying with her. Bradley's working such long hours, you know. But we're thinking of you, sweetie. Get well soon." After I hung up, I lay in the sterile bed and stared at the ceiling. The nurse came in to check my IV, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and gentle hands. "Boyfriend seems nice," she commented, adjusting my blanket. "He was here all night that first night, only left when visiting hours ended." "Yeah," I agreed softly. "He's wonderful. Don't see that kind of dedication much these days," she continued. "Man who sits by your bed all night is a keeper." I thought about Marcus in that uncomfortable chair, watching me sleep, probably trying to understand why I was destroying myself. A keeper. If only I could afford to keep him. "Sometimes," the nurse said, seeming to read my thoughts, "we get so caught up taking care of everyone else we forget we deserve care too." She patted my hand and left, but her words stayed. I deserved care. It was such a foreign concept, I tested it out like a new language. I deserve care. I deserve love. I deserve to not carry everyone else's burdens alone. But deserving and receiving were 2 different things, and I'd been taught long ago which category I fell into. When I was discharged, Marcus was there to drive me home. We rode in silence, the space between us, filled with everything I couldn't say. At my apartment, he helped me inside, made sure I had food in the refrigerator, and then stood by the door like he was memorizing my face. "I'm not giving up on us," he said finally, "but I can't watch you destroy yourself either. When you're ready to tell me what's really going on, I'll be here. But Elisa, please don't wait too long. We're both running out of time." After he left, I sat on my couch and opened my laptop. The bills were waiting as always. The second mortgage payment was due. The credit cards Emma had maxed out buying baby furniture needed attention. The electricity bill for my parents' house blinked urgently. I pulled out my calculator and got to work. My body might be screaming for rest. My relationship might be crumbling. My health might be failing. But the numbers didn't care about any of that. The burden had grown too heavy to carry, but I didn't know how to put it down. So I did what I always did. I made the payments, updated the spreadsheets, and pretended tomorrow would somehow be different, even though we all knew it wouldn't be. Thanksgiving arrived dressed in unseasonably warm weather, the kind that made Mom fret about her turkey drying out, and Emma complain about her pregnancy making her extra sensitive to heat. I stood in my parents' driveway holding a green bean casserole I'd made from scratch and gathering courage like armor for the battle ahead. Marcus beside me, his hand warm on my lower back. We'd been rebuilding slowly since my hospital stay 2 months ago. I still hadn't told him the full truth, but I'd stopped taking the second job and started eating regular meals. Small victories in a war I was still losing. "Ready?" he asked, pressing a kiss to my temple. "As ready as anyone can be for Thompson family Thanksgiving," I replied, attempting lightness. The front door swung open before we could knock. Mom stood there in her holiday apron, the one with turkeys wearing pilgrim hats that she'd had since I was 10. Her face lit up seeing us, then immediately shifted focus past us to the driveway. "Oh, good, you're here. Emma just texted that she's 5 minutes away. Can you help me set up the special pregnancy chair we bought her? Her back has been killing her." Inside the house smelled like my childhood. Sage and butter and that particular scent of too many people in too small a space. Dad was stationed in his recliner watching football with Uncle Pete and my cousin David. He half rose when he saw me, then settled back with a wave. "Hey there, stranger," he said, eyes not quite meeting mine. Ever since my collapse, there'd been this distance between us, like he knew something he didn't want to know. I busied myself in the kitchen while Marcus was conscripted to help move furniture. The special pregnancy chair turned out to be a $300 ergonomic recliner that dominated the dining room. I bit my tongue and mashed potatoes with perhaps more force than necessary. Emma's arrival was announced by the slam of car doors and her voice carrying through the windows. "Bradley, be careful with that. Do you know how much that diaper bag cost?" She swept in wearing a designer maternity dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her bump artfully displayed hair professionally blown out. The nanny, yes, she already had a nanny for a baby not yet born, trailed behind carrying multiple bags. "There's my baby girl." Mom rushed to embrace Emma carefully as if she might break. "How are you feeling? Is the morning sickness better? Do you need anything?" Emma sank into her special chair with a dramatic sigh. "It's been so hard, Mom. You have no idea. Yesterday I could barely keep down the organic smoothie our chef made." I caught Marcus's eye across the room. He was fighting a smile, and I loved him for finding humor where I could only find frustration. "Elisa." Emma finally acknowledged me. "You look tired. Are you still working at that little accounting firm?" "Peterson Financial, yes. Same place for 8 years now." "How nice," she said in a tone that suggested it was anything but. Stability is so important for some people. Dinner was served on Mom's best china, the set she'd been collecting piece by piece since before I was born. Emma held court from her throne-like chair, regaling us with stories about their new Tesla, the nursery designer they'd hired, and the baby moon they were planning to Fiji. "Bradley's been so generous," she cooed, rubbing her bump. "He says nothing's too good for his little princess." "You don't know it's a girl yet," I pointed out, passing the gravy. Emma shot me a look. "Mother's intuition. Plus we're doing the early genetic testing next week, the one that costs $4,000, but tells you everything." I watched Dad's jaw tighten at the casual mention of such an astronomical sum. He'd been picking at his turkey, and I noticed his portions were smaller than usual. Mom, too, seemed to be eating less, pushing food around her plate while hanging on Emma's every word. "So Marcus," Mom said, suddenly turning to him with intent, "Elisa says you two are thinking about the future. Any plans we should know about?" My fork clattered against my plate. Marcus's hand found mine under the table. "We're taking things slow," he said diplomatically, "making sure we're on solid ground." "Smart," Uncle Pete chimed in. "Not like some people who rush into things, though at Elisa's age that biological clock must be ticking pretty loud." "I'm 31, I said flatly. "Exactly," Emma exclaimed. "I mean, I'm 28 and already feeling like I waited too long. Thank God Bradley proposed when he did. Some women end up waiting forever and then it's too late." She looked pointedly at my bare ring finger, the finger that had worn Marcus's ring for exactly 1 week before I'd had to give it back. "Actually," Marcus said, his voice carrying an edge I rarely heard, "Elisa and I have discussed marriage. The timing just hasn't been right." Mom laughed, the sound tinkling and false. "Oh, Elisa's always been too selfish to settle down. Career-focused, you know. Not like Emma, who understands what really matters. Family." The words hit like physical blows. Too selfish. As if the past 9 years hadn't happened. As if I hadn't bled myself dry keeping this family afloat while being labeled the absent one, the cold one, the one who didn't care. "Excuse me," I managed, standing abruptly. "I need to use the bathroom." I locked myself in the small powder room and gripped the sink edge until my knuckles went white. In the mirror, my face looked pale and drawn, the stress of keeping this secret eating me from the inside out. I could hear them laughing in the dining room, Emma's voice rising above the rest as she told another story about her perfect life. When I finally returned, the conversation had shifted to Emma's business ventures. "The boutique is just a minor setback," she was saying. "Bradley's friend has this amazing opportunity with a wellness retreat center. We're thinking of investing." "That sounds risky," Dad said carefully. Emma waved dismissively. "You have to spend money to make money, Daddy. Besides, we might refinance the house to get the capital. Bradley knows someone at the bank who could push it through quickly." I couldn't hold back anymore. "You mean Mom and Dad might refinance the house they already took a second mortgage on for your down payment?" Silence fell like a hammer. Emma's eyes narrowed dangerously. I don't recall asking for your financial advice, Elisa. Not all of us are content with modest ambitions. Modest ambitions. I heard my voice rising. Is that what you call fiscal responsibility? Girls. Mom intervened, but Emma was already building steam. At least I'm not so bitter about my own life that I can't be happy for my family's success. When's the last time you even helped Mom and Dad with anything? You live 20 minutes away and we barely see you? I work, I said through gritted teeth. Some of us don't have the luxury of nannies and personal chefs. Emma's hand went to her bump protectively as if my words might harm the baby. You know what your problem is? You're jealous. You've always been jealous that Mom and Dad love me more. Emma, Dad's voice cracked like a whip, surprising everyone. But she was on a roll now. It's true. You sit there judging me, judging us, but where were you when Dad needed surgery, when they were struggling? Thank God for Bradley's family, or they'd have lost everything by now. The irony was so thick I could taste it. There I sat 9 years and nearly $250,000 deep in saving them being accused of abandonment by the very person whose lifestyle I'd been subsidizing. Marcus's hand tightened on mine. I could feel him vibrating with suppressed anger, and I knew he was one comment away from exploding with the truth. You're right, I said quietly, the fight draining out of me. I haven't been around much. I'm sorry. Emma looked triumphant. Mom reached over to pat her hand. It's okay, sweetie. We know you do your best. Not everyone can be as family-oriented as Emma. I stood up slowly, placing my napkin beside my barely touched plate. Thank you for dinner. We should go. Already? Mom looked genuinely surprised. But we haven't had pie yet. I made your favorite, pumpkin. I'm sure Emma will enjoy it, I said, gathering my casserole dish that had barely been touched. She always did like sweet things. As we made our exit, I heard Mom stage whisper to Emma, I don't know why she has to be so difficult. This is why I worry she'll end up alone. In the car, Marcus drove in silence for 3 blocks before pulling over. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, I worried it might snap. I can't do this anymore, he said finally. My heart stopped. What? He turned to face me, eyes blazing. Watch you be abused by these people. Elisa, I've held my tongue for 2 years, but I can't pretend anymore. Something is very wrong here. They're my family, I whispered. No, he said firmly. Family doesn't treat you like that. Family doesn't call you selfish while you're killing yourself for them. And I think, God, Elisa, I think you've been hiding something huge from me. Something about money. The dam I'd built so carefully began to crack. Marcus, I've been watching, he continued. The way you flinch when your mom mentions buying Emma things. The way you can never afford anything but your parents somehow manage despite your dad barely working. The way you collapsed from exhaustion while working 2 jobs but won't say why. Tears were streaming down my face now. You don't understand. If I don't help them, they'll lose everything. Help them, his voice gentled. Elisa, how much? And in the parking lot of a closed gas station on Thanksgiving night, with my family's cruel words still echoing in my ears, I finally broke. I told him everything. The automatic payments, the credit cards, the second mortgage I was now covering. The $250,000 over 9 years that had bought me nothing but invisibility and scorn. Marcus listened in stunned silence. When I finished, he pulled me into his arms and held me while I sobbed out 9 years of suppressed pain. We're going to fix this, he murmured into my hair. I don't know how yet, but we're going to fix this. You're not alone anymore. She was right, though. I hiccuped against his chest. They do love her more. He pulled back to look at me, his face fierce with protective anger. Then they're fools, and their favoritism is going to cost them the only daughter actually worth a damn. We drove home in silence, but it was different now. The secret was out, shared between us, and somehow that made it bearable. Marcus stayed the night holding me as I processed the earthquake of finally speaking my truth. The next morning, I woke to him on his laptop at my kitchen table, spreadsheets open, calculator at his elbow. "What are you doing?" I asked, wrapping my arms around him from behind. "Creating a timeline," he said, showing me his work. "Every payment you've made documented and dated. This isn't just about the money, Elisa. This is about showing a pattern of financial abuse." Abuse. The word felt too strong, too dramatic. He spun in his chair to face me. "What else would you call it? You've been manipulated into poverty while being gaslit about your contributions. That's abuse." I wanted to protest, but the words died in my throat. Because maybe he was right. Maybe love wasn't supposed to cost everything you had and leave you with nothing but criticism in return. "What do I do with this?" I asked, gesturing at his carefully compiled evidence. "Whatever you want," he said simply. "Keep paying and say nothing. Stop paying and say nothing. Or stop paying and tell the truth. But whatever you decide, I'm here. We're a team now." I kissed him then, tasting coffee and determination on his lips. For the first time in 9 years, I wasn't carrying this burden alone. And that more than anything gave me hope that maybe, just maybe, things could change. The spreadsheet glowed on the screen, each line a testament to my silent sacrifice. $250,000, 9 years, 0 acknowledgement. But now there were 2 of us who knew the truth. And sometimes that's how revolutions begin. Not with grand gestures, but with one person saying to another, "You don't have to do this alone anymore." Marcus saved the file and titled it simply "The Truth." It would sit on his hard drive for months before we'd need it, but its mere existence was a promise that someday, somehow, the truth would have its day. Even if that day ended up being at a family reunion where everything would finally explode into the light. Marcus transformed my tiny kitchen table into a command center over the following weeks. His laptop became a permanent fixture next to my coffee maker, surrounded by manila folders, bank statements, and color-coded sticky notes that mapped out 9 years of financial hemorrhaging. He approached the task with the methodical precision of the software engineer. He was turning my chaotic sacrifice into organized data. "Look at this," he said one evening, pivoting his screen toward me. "I've created a visualization of the money flow. Red lines are your payments. Blue is your parents' known income. Green is what Emma has received." The graph looked like a crime scene. Red dominated everything, flowing from a single source, me, into multiple streams that all led to the same destination, my family's lifestyle. $247,000, Marcus announced, leaning back in his chair. "That's the current total with interest calculated on the credit cards you've been paying." Hearing the number out loud made it real in a way my mental calculations never had. $250,000. I could have bought a house, started a business, traveled the world. Instead, I'd purchased my own invisibility. "I've broken it down by category too." He continued clicking through tabs. "Mortgage payments, utilities, credit cards, medical bills, Emma's wedding, miscellaneous gifts to Emma. Want to guess which category is the largest?" "The mortgage." I ventured, though I suspected the truth. "Emma," he said flatly, "between the wedding, the credit cards Mom uses for her, and the second mortgage for her house down payment, she's consumed 43% of the total." I stared at the pie chart, each slice representing years of my life converted into Emma's comfort. Marcus reached for my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. "This isn't just numbers, Elisa. This is evidence of systematic financial exploitation." "They don't see it that way," I protested weakly. "Because they don't know. You've made yourself the invisible safety net. They jump without looking because they don't even know you're there to catch them." His words stung with truth. I'd created this dynamic as much as they had enabled it with my silence, fed it with my secrecy. The martyr complex my therapist would later identify was in full bloom. Marcus secured everything in an encrypted cloud folder he named Operation Truth. Banking passwords, PDF statements, transaction histories, even screenshots of Emma's social media posts showing off purchases I'd unknowingly funded. He treated it like evidence for a court case, which in a way it was, the court of family opinion. 3 days after he'd finished compiling everything, Emma showed up at my apartment. It was the first time she'd visited in the 2 years I'd lived there, and her presence felt like an invasion. "Nice place," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. Her eyes swept over my secondhand furniture, the small space, the obvious signs of someone living paycheck to paycheck. Very cozy. "What do you want, Emma?" I was tired, having just worked a 10-hour day, and my patience for her had worn thin since Thanksgiving. She settled onto my couch, uninvited, her designer bag taking up half the cushion. "I need to talk to you about Mom and Dad." My stomach clenched. "What about them?" "I know they've been struggling," she said, examining her manicure. "Bradley and I have been helping where we can, but with the baby coming and the boutique situation." "The boutique that failed," her eyes flashed. "It was a learning experience. Anyway, I've been going through their finances, trying to help them organize things, and I noticed some irregularities." The blood in my veins turned to ice. Irregularities. "Deposits," she said slowly, watching my face. "Regular ones, from various payment services, almost like someone was helping them without their knowledge." I kept my expression neutral through sheer force of will. "Maybe they have investments you don't know about." Emma laughed, the sound sharp and knowing. "Dad's construction business has been bleeding money for years, and Mom hasn't worked since we were kids. What investments?" We stared at each other across my coffee table, the air thick with unspoken accusations. "I thought maybe it was Bradley's family at first," she continued. "But when I asked his mother, she said they'd never given my parents money, so that leaves a mystery." "Maybe it's just banking errors in their favor," I suggested. "It happens." For 9 years, Emma's smile was predatory now, consistently always just enough to cover their major bills. She knew. Somehow she'd figured it out, or at least figured out enough to be dangerous. "What do you want, Emma?" I repeated, exhaustion seeping into my voice. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I want you to admit you have money. I know you do. All this poor act living in this tiny apartment, driving that ancient car. It's just that, isn't it? An act?" The accusation was so far from the truth I almost laughed. "You think I'm secretly rich?" "You must be," she insisted. "There's no other explanation. And if you've been hiding money while Mom and Dad struggle, while I've had to ask my in-laws for help, well, that would be pretty selfish, wouldn't it?" The irony was suffocating. She'd taken credit for support that didn't exist, while I'd provided support she now wanted to claim I was selfishly withholding. "I think you should leave," I said quietly. Emma stood smoothing her dress. "Fine, but Elisa, I'm going to find out what you're hiding, and when I do, the whole family is going to know exactly what kind of person you really are." After she left, I called Marcus immediately. He came over with Thai food and his laptop, pulling up our documented evidence. "She's getting close," I said, pushing pad Thai around my plate. "What if she tells Mom and Dad?" "Would that be the worst thing?" Marcus asked gently. "At least then they'd know the truth." "She'll twist it," I said with certainty. "Make it seem like I was trying to control them or buy their love or make them dependent on me. She'll find a way to make herself the victim and me the villain. She always does." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then pulled up a new document. "I found something else while I was researching. Emma's boutique. It didn't just fail. There are 3 lawsuits pending from vendors she never paid, and Bradley's business. It's been in trouble for months. His family cut them off financially 6 weeks ago." I stared at him. "How do you know this?" "Public records for the lawsuits, and Bradley's mother is on the board of my company. Office gossip travels." He paused. "Elisa, I think Emma's not just snooping. She's desperate. If she can't get money from his family anymore, she needs a new source," I finished. "And she thinks I'm hiding wealth that rightfully belongs to the family, to her." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Emma's visit wasn't about concern for our parents. It was a fishing expedition trying to find a new well to tap. "What do I do?" I asked, feeling trapped between revelation and continued exploitation. Marcus closed his laptop and pulled me against him. First, you breathe. Second, we prepare for whatever she's planning. And third, you start thinking about what you want. Not what they need, not what would keep peace, but what you actually want. What I wanted seemed impossibly simple and impossibly complex. I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted gratitude. I wanted to stop being the invisible daughter whose sacrifices were erased even as they were consumed. But most of all, I wanted to stop. I can't keep doing this, I whispered into Marcus's chest. I can't keep bleeding myself dry for people who don't even see me. Then don't, he said simply. Stop the payments, see what happens. The thought terrified me. 9 years of conditioning screamed that their failures would be my fault. But Dr. Reeves, the therapist I'd soon start seeing, would have a different word for it: boundaries. That night, I made a decision, not to expose everything not yet, but to start protecting myself. I reduced the automatic payments by half, keeping just enough flowing to prevent immediate disaster while beginning to reclaim my own life. It was a small act of rebellion, but it felt monumental. The invisible daughter was starting to become visible, even if only to herself. Emma's threats hung in the air like storm clouds, but for the first time I had my own ammunition. Marcus's carefully compiled evidence was more than numbers and dates. It was proof that I existed, that I mattered, that my sacrifices were real, even if they'd been unseen. The war Emma thought she was starting was actually one I'd been fighting alone for 9 years. But now I had an ally documentation and the dawning realization that maybe, just maybe, I deserved to win. February arrived with ice storms that turned the city into a crystal palace of dangerous beauty. I was scraping frost off my windshield, already running late for work, when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but the voice that greeted me when I answered sent my heart plummeting. Is this Elisa Thompson? This is St. Mary's Hospital. Your father has been brought in with a cardiac event. You're listed as his emergency contact. The ice scraper fell from my numb fingers, clattering on the frozen pavement. Is he... How bad is it? He's stable now, but he's being prepped for emergency surgery. How quickly can you get here? I don't remember the drive, only that somehow I made it without sliding off the icy roads. The hospital lobby smelled of industrial disinfectant and fear. I found Dad in the cardiac unit, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him against the white sheets, machines beeping an electronic symphony around him. Hey, kiddo, he whispered, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Sorry about the fuss. Don't you dare apologize, I said, gripping his hand. What happened? Chest pains at the job site. Thought it was indigestion, but Jimmy insisted on calling the ambulance. His fingers squeezed mine weakly. Good thing, too. Doc says one of my arteries is 90% blocked. A doctor appeared, all efficiency and careful words. Triple bypass. Immediate surgery. Excellent surgeon. High success rate when caught in time. The words washed over me in a tide of medical terminology while I nodded and signed forms. Where's Mom? I asked once the doctor left. Dad's face clouded. On her way. She was at Emma's, shopping for nursery furniture. Of course she was. I swallowed the familiar bitterness and focused on what mattered. The insurance will cover the surgery, but there might be additional costs. Don't worry about any of it, okay? Just focus on getting better. His eyes met mine, then really met them for the first time in years. Elisa, rest. I interrupted, not ready for whatever revelation might be coming. We can talk after. Mom arrived in a flurry of tears, and winter coat Emma, trailing behind with her phone out, already documenting the crisis for social media sympathy. Oh, Robert. Mom flew to Dad's side, pushing me out of the way. How could you scare me like this? I stepped back, letting her have her moment, and nearly collided with Emma. She was typing rapidly, and I caught a glimpse of her post. At the hospital with Daddy. So scary, thank God I was with Mom when we got the call. Family is everything. Really? I hissed. He's about to have heart surgery and you're posting for likes. She looked at me with genuine confusion. I'm updating our family and friends. Not all of us process trauma by going silent, Elisa. They wheeled Dad away before I could respond. The three of us sat in the surgical waiting room, Mom between Emma and me like a buffer zone. Hours crawled by. Emma left twice for coffee runs, returning with elaborate drinks and complaints about the hospital cafe prices. I sat silent, calculating medical costs in my head. "The baby's been so active today," Emma announced during hour 3. "She must sense her grandpa needs prayers." "That's beautiful, sweetheart," Mom cooed, reaching to touch Emma's bump. "Your father will be so happy to meet her. Bradley wanted to be here," Emma continued. "But he had that important meeting with the investors. You understand, right? Mom business has to come first sometimes." "Of course, dear. He's such a good provider." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Good provider Bradley's business was failing. His family had cut them off. Emma was living on credit and lies while I sat there mentally calculating how to cover Dad's deductible without depleting my meager emergency fund. The surgeon finally appeared after 5 hours still in scrubs. The surgery went perfectly. He's a fighter. With proper recovery and cardiac rehab, he should make a full recovery. The relief nearly knocked me off my feet. Mom sobbed into Emma's shoulder while I peppered the surgeon with questions about recovery time, rehabilitation needs, follow-up care. Someone had to be practical. "Can we see him?" Mom asked. "He'll be in recovery for a few hours, then move to cardiac ICU, one visitor at a time once he's settled." "Emma should go first," Mom decided immediately. "She needs to rest being pregnant and all. This stress can't be good for the baby." I watched them walk away, Emma already on her phone again, probably updating her crisis posts. A hand on my shoulder made me jump. Marcus stood there, still in his work clothes, carrying a bag from the good deli near his office. "How?" I asked, falling into his arms. "You texted me he was in surgery. Did you think I wouldn't come?" He held me tight, then pulled back to study my face. "When's the last time you ate?" I couldn't remember. He steered me to a corner of the waiting room and unpacked sandwiches, fruit bottles of water. "Eat. You can't help anyone if you collapse again." "The bills," I said between bites of turkey sandwich. "Even with insurance, this is going to be astronomical." "We'll figure it out," Marcus said firmly. "Together." "I can't ask you to—" "You're not asking. I'm offering. Actually, no, I'm insisting." He cupped my face in his hands. This is what partners do. I wanted to protest, but exhaustion won. I leaned against him, letting his strength shore up my depleted reserves. We sat like that until visiting hours officially began. Then I made my way to the cardiac ICU. Dad looked like a science experiment, tubes and wires connecting him to various machines. His eyes fluttered open when I entered. "There's my girl," he murmured. "Hi, Dad. Surgery went great. You're going to be fine." He studied me for a long moment. "Sit down, Elisa. We need to talk. You need to rest." "Sit." The firmness in his voice surprised me. I pulled a chair close to his bed. "I know," he said simply. My heart stuttered. "Know what?" "About the money, the payments, all of it." He reached for my hand with his IV-free arm. "I've known for 2 years." The world tilted. "Dad..." "Let me finish, please." His eyes filled with tears. I was going through old bank statements for taxes, saw patterns, did some digging, figured out it was you. "Why didn't you say anything?" My voice came out strangled. "Pride," he admitted. "Stupid, worthless pride and shame. So much shame. What kind of father lets his daughter bankrupt herself to save him? You weren't letting me. You didn't know." I suspected, though. Deep down. The mysterious deposits, the convenient windfalls whenever things got tight. I should have known Emma's in-laws weren't helping. They barely tolerate her. He squeezed my hand tighter. But I let myself believe it because the alternative meant facing what I'd allowed to happen. How we'd failed you. How I'd failed you. "Dad, stop. You need to rest." "No, I need to say this. Might not get another chance." He struggled to sit up slightly. "Your mother? She doesn't know. Can't see past Emma to save her life. But I see you, Elisa. I see what you've sacrificed, and it's killing me as surely as any blocked artery." Tears streamed down both our faces, 9 years of silence breaking like a dam. "I'm going to tell her," he said. "Tell everyone. At Sunday dinner next week, I'm going to—" "No," I interrupted. "Not like that. Not because you're scared and guilty. If the truth comes out, it has to be on my terms." He studied me, this daughter he'd overlooked for so long. "When did you get so wise?" "When I had to be," I said softly. A nurse appeared, checking his vitals and shooing me out. "He needs rest. You can come back in a few hours." I found Marcus in the waiting room, laptop open, working remotely. Mom and Emma had gone to the cafeteria. "How is he?" Marcus asked, making room for me on the uncomfortable bench. "Alive, grateful, and apparently not as oblivious as I thought." I told him about Dad's confession. Marcus whistled low. "That changes things." "Does it? He knew for 2 years and said nothing. Let me keep paying while Mom praised Emma for being the good daughter." "He was scared," Marcus said gently, ashamed. "Those are powerful silencers." "I know." I leaned against him. "I'm not angry, just tired, so deeply tired." The next few days blurred together. Hospital visits, insurance paperwork, coordinating Dad's care. I took time off work, practically living at the hospital. Emma visited once a day for exactly an hour, always with fresh complaints about pregnancy symptoms and Bradley's absence. "He's so busy with the new venture," she explained on day 3. "This investment opportunity won't wait, you know." I knew better than to ask what investment opportunity. Their house of cards was wobbling, but Emma maintained the facade with desperate determination. The bills started arriving within a week. Even with insurance, the numbers were staggering. $30,000 for the surgery, another $10,000 for the cardiac ICU. Rehabilitation would be thousands more. The second mortgage payment still loomed. Basic living expenses hadn't paused for Dad's heart attack. I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by bills and calculations, when my phone rang. An unknown number again, but this time I recognized the voice immediately. "Miss Thompson, this is Patricia Reeves. I'm a therapist at Mindbridge Counseling. I was given your information by Sarah Chen, the social worker at St. Mary's. She's concerned about caregiver burnout and suggested you might benefit from talking to someone." I almost hung up. Therapy was a luxury I couldn't afford. But something in her voice, kind without being condescending, made me pause. "I don't know if I can afford—" "We work on a sliding scale based on income and circumstances," Dr. Reeves interrupted gently. "Sarah filled me in on your situation. Not details, just that you're a caregiver dealing with significant family stress. Would you be willing to come in for an initial consultation, no charge for the first visit?" Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the weight of Dad's confession. Maybe it was the simple kindness of a stranger offering help. Whatever the reason, I found myself agreeing. "How's Thursday at 4?" she asked. "I'll be there, Arth." I promised, having no idea that this single decision would begin unraveling 9 years of destructive patterns. That night, I sat by Dad's bedside while he slept. The cardiac monitor beeped steadily, a metronome of survival. I'd saved him financially at least. But at what cost to myself? And how many more times could I pull off this magic trick before there was nothing left of me to give? "I see you, Elisa," he'd said. But being seen by one person didn't erase 9 years of invisibility. It didn't refill my empty bank account or restore my depleted spirit. Still, it was a start. One person in my family finally knew the truth. The foundation of secrets I'd built was developing cracks. I just didn't know yet whether that would save me or bury me when it finally collapsed. Dr. Patricia Reeves' office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted Victorian house, all warm colors and soft textures that invited confession. I sat rigidly on her cream-colored couch, hands folded in my lap like a schoolgirl called to the principal's office, wondering what exactly I was doing there. "Elisa," she said, settling into her chair with a cup of tea. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe mid-40s, with silver streaking through dark hair and eyes that seemed to see straight through my carefully constructed walls. "Thank you for coming." Why don't you tell me what brings you here today? The social worker at the hospital suggested it, I said carefully. My father just had heart surgery. That must be stressful. Are you his primary caregiver? I'm involved in his care. The evasion felt automatic, like breathing. She studied me quietly, letting the silence stretch until I filled it. I help my parents sometimes, financially, when they need it. Sometimes, she prompted gently. And somehow, in that warm room with this stranger who had no stake in my family dynamics, the truth began spilling out. Not just the money, but the weight of it. The exhaustion, the invisibility, the way love had become transactional in my family, measured in dollars I didn't have. $247,000. I finally said the number hanging between us like a confession. Over 9 years, and my mom doesn't even know. Dr. Reeves set down her tea. That's a significant sacrifice. What do you think would happen if you stopped? The question hit me like cold water. They'd lose everything, the house, their retirement. My dad just had surgery. That's what would happen to them, she interrupted gently. I asked what you think would happen to you if you stopped. I stared at her, genuinely confused. To me, yes, how would you feel? What would change in your life? I'd feel guilty, I said immediately. Selfish, like a bad daughter. Interesting. She made a note. You'd feel like a bad daughter for not giving them $250,000. Tell me what makes a good daughter in your family. Emma. I said without thinking, then laughed bitterly. My sister. She's the good daughter, pretty successful, married well, had the big wedding, pregnant now. And she contributes financially? No, she receives. My parents help her when they can. So the good daughter receives and you give, but you're not the good daughter. The logic of it laid out so simply made my head spin. It's different. Emma makes them happy. She visits, calls, shares her life with them. I just pay bills. In secret. Yes. Why? Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. We spent the rest of the hour excavating the roots of my behavior, tracing patterns back to childhood. The quiet child who earned love through usefulness, the teenager who worked while her sister was celebrated, the young woman who translated love into silent sacrifice. I'd like to see you weekly, Dr. Reeves said as our time ended. I think we have a lot to explore about boundaries, self-worth, and family dynamics. I can't afford sliding scale. Remember, based on what you've told me about your finances, I can offer a rate you can manage. Consider it an investment in your health. Mental health is health, Elisa. I scheduled the next appointment and left feeling raw and exposed. The drive home took me past my parents' house. Mom's car was in the driveway, Emma's Range Rover beside it. They were probably planning nursery decorations or baby showers while Dad recovered in the hospital. Marcus was cooking when I got home, the apartment smelling like garlic and possibility. He took one look at my face and pulled me into his arms. Rough session. Enlightening, I corrected, breathing him in. Did you know I've been buying love? Apparently I've set up a whole economy where I pay for the privilege of being ignored. He pulled back to look at me. Is that what the therapist said? No, that's what I heard when she started connecting dots. I moved to the couch, suddenly exhausted. She asked what would happen if I stopped. To me, not to them. I couldn't answer. Marcus brought me a glass of wine and sat beside me. What do you think would happen? I don't know. Maybe I'd find out if they love me at all or just what I provide. That's a scary question. Terrifying, I agreed. We sat in comfortable silence while dinner simmered. Then Marcus said quietly, I love you. Not what you provide, not what you sacrifice, just you. I need you to know that. Tears pricked my eyes. I know. Do you? Because sometimes I think you're so used to being unseen that you can't believe someone actually sees you. He was right. Dr. Reeves would later call it learned invisibility, a protective mechanism that had outlived its usefulness. But that night, I just let Marcus hold me while I considered the possibility that I might be worth loving without conditions. My second therapy session came 3 days after Dad was released from the hospital. I'd spent the morning coordinating his home care, arguing with insurance companies, and deflecting Mom's suggestions that Emma was too stressed to help. "Tell me about your week," Dr. Reeves began. I outlined the medical logistics, the financial juggling, the way I'd automatically stepped into the caregiver role, while Emma posted hospital selfies for sympathy. "You sound angry," she observed. "I'm not angry, I'm just tired." Those aren't mutually exclusive. You can be both tired and angry. In fact, exhaustion often masks deeper emotions we're not ready to face. Fine, maybe I'm a little frustrated with Emma, my mom, the whole situation. I paused. Myself. Why yourself? Because I can't stop. Even knowing what I know, even with my dad finally acknowledging it, I'm still paying their bills, still enabling this dysfunction. Change is hard, Dr. Reeves said, especially when the patterns are decades old. What would need to happen for you to feel safe enough to stop? I considered this. I'd need to know they wouldn't end up homeless, that Dad would get his medications, that they'd be okay. So your prerequisite for self-care is ensuring everyone else is taken care of first. When you put it like that, it sounds ridiculous. Does it sound like something you learned very young? We spent the session excavating childhood memories, the time I gave Emma my birthday money because she wanted a toy, the way Mom praised me for being so generous while Emma played with her new purchase, the pattern establishing itself before I even understood what patterns were. Children learn what love looks like from their parents, Dr. Reeves explained. You learned that love meant giving until it hurt, then giving more. Emma learned that love meant receiving without question. Neither is healthy, but yours is actively harmful to your well-being. Are you saying my parents don't love me? I'm saying they might not know how to love you in a way that doesn't hurt you. And more importantly, you don't know how to receive love that doesn't cost you everything. By our fourth session, Marcus had started joining occasionally, not for couples therapy, but as support and to better understand how to help without enabling my enabling. "I want to propose again," he told Dr. Reeves during one joint session, "but I'm terrified it'll just add more pressure, that she'll feel guilty about wedding costs or worry about taking attention from Emma's baby." "Elisa, what do you think about that?" Dr. Reeves asked. "He's right," I admitted. "I want to marry him. God, I want that more than anything. But the thought of planning a wedding while managing everything else—" "What if the wedding was just for you two?" she suggested. "No family drama, no financial burden. What then?" "That's not how weddings work in my family," I said automatically. "Your family's rules haven't been working for you," she pointed out. "Maybe it's time to make new ones." The idea was revolutionary, making choices based on what I wanted rather than what would keep peace or meet expectations. It felt selfish and liberating in equal measure. Week by week, Dr. Reeves helped me excavate years of buried emotions, anger at my parents for their blindness, rage at Emma for her entitlement, fury at myself for enabling it all. But underneath the anger was grief. For the childhood I didn't have the recognition I craved, the simple desire to matter as much as my sister. "Your feelings are valid," she told me repeatedly. "All of them, even the ugly ones, especially the ugly ones." During our 8th session, I mentioned Emma's recent behavior, the fishing for information, the accusations about hidden money. "She's getting desperate," I explained. "Bradley's business is failing. His family cut them off. I think she's convinced I have secret wealth." "In a way you do," Dr. Reeves said. "You have the wealth of knowledge about where the money actually came from. That's power, Elisa. How does it feel to have power in this dynamic for once?" I'd never thought of it that way. "Terrifying," I said honestly. "Like holding a bomb." "Bombs destroy," she agreed. "But sometimes destruction is necessary for rebuilding. The question is, what do you want to build from the rubble?" "A life," I said without thinking. my own life with Marcus, with boundaries, with visibility. Then maybe it's time to start laying that foundation. That night, I went home and did something I'd never done before. I wrote myself a check for $500 and put it in my savings account. Not much in the grand scheme of things, but it was money that wouldn't go to my parents' bills. Money that was just mine. It felt like rebellion. It felt like self-care. It felt like the first brick in a new foundation. "I'm proud of you," Marcus said when I showed him the deposit slip. "It's just $500. It's not about the amount, it's about what it represents." He kissed me softly. "You're choosing yourself. Finally." Dr. Reeves had warned that change would trigger what she called extinction bursts, desperate attempts by others to restore the old patterns. She was right. Within a week, the requests escalated. Mom needed new appliances. Emma had unexpected medical bills. Dad's prescriptions were so expensive. But for the first time in 9 years, I had tools beyond automatic compliance. I had words like boundaries and self-care. I had Marcus's support and Dr. Reeves' guidance. Most importantly, I had the growing conviction that maybe, just maybe, I deserved to keep some pieces of myself instead of giving them all away. The therapy revelation wasn't a single moment of clarity. It was weeks of small realizations building into an avalanche of understanding. I wasn't a bad daughter for having limits. Love shouldn't require self-destruction. And visibility, being seen, acknowledged, valued, wasn't too much to ask from family. These simple truths felt revolutionary because they contradicted everything I'd been taught. But revolution, Dr. Reeves reminded me often, starts with someone saying, "This isn't working anymore." And it wasn't. The only question now was whether I'd have the courage to stop participating in my own erasure. The answer would come sooner than I expected in a country club garden where everything would finally explode into the light. My 32nd birthday fell on a Saturday in April, one of those perfect spring days that made promises about fresh starts and new beginnings. Marcus had planned carefully. Brunch at our favorite cafe, a walk through the botanical gardens, dinner at the restaurant where we'd had our first date. Simple, intimate, perfect. I woke to him bringing me coffee in bed, a single candle stuck in a blueberry muffin. "Make a wish," he said, smiling as morning light painted golden stripes across our bedroom. I closed my eyes and wished for courage, for boundaries, for the strength to stop shrinking myself to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. Then I blew out the candle and kissed him, tasting coffee and possibility. "Happy birthday, beautiful. Ready for your surprise." I thought today was the surprise, I said, gesturing at the tray he'd prepared. "Just the beginning." He pulled an envelope from behind his back. "Open it." Inside were tickets to a show I'd mentioned wanting to see months ago, back when spending money on myself felt impossible. My eyes welled up. "Marcus, these must have cost—" "Stop," he said gently. "No calculating today, no guilt, just joy, okay?" I nodded, swallowing the automatic protests. Dr. Reeves had been working with me on receiving without immediately calculating the debt. It was harder than it sounded. We were getting ready to leave when my phone rang. Mom's ringtone, the one I'd set to Dancing Queen years ago when she was going through an ABBA phase and never changed. "Don't answer," Marcus suggested. "Whatever it is can wait." "But lifetime habits die hard," I picked up. "Oh, good, you're awake." Mom's voice was bright with excitement. "What time can you be at Emma's?" "Emma's, why would I?" "For the gender reveal party, of course, didn't you get the invitation? Emma said she sent it weeks ago." I hadn't received anything, which meant Emma hadn't sent anything. This was deliberate. "Mom, it's my birthday. Marcus and I have plans." Silence. Then, "Your birthday?" Oh dear. I completely forgot. "Well, can't you celebrate tomorrow? Emma's already set everything up and you know how emotional she gets now with the pregnancy. Plus, Bradley's entire family is coming. It would look so bad if you weren't there." The familiar calculus began automatically. My wants versus family peace. My day versus Emma's expectations. Marcus watched my face, saw the internal struggle, and gently took the phone. "Hi, Mrs. Thompson, this is Marcus. Elisa won't be able to make it today. We have non-refundable reservations. I'm sure Emma will understand. Have a great party." He hung up before she could protest and turned my phone to silent. "But no," he said firmly. "Today is yours. Emma has had every other day. She doesn't get this one." An hour later, as we were enjoying eggs, Benedict, and mimosas, my phone lit up with texts. I made the mistake of looking. "Mom, I can't believe how selfish you're being. Your sister needs family support right now." "Emma, seriously, you're really going to miss finding out if you're having a niece or nephew because you want to go to brunch. Some aunt you'll be." "Mom again, Emma is crying. I hope you're happy." I showed Marcus, who read them with darkening eyes. "Do you know what's really happening here?" he asked. "They're proving Dr. Reeves right. Your birthday literally doesn't exist for them unless it serves Emma's needs." He was right. In their world, I was a supporting character whose personal milestones only mattered if they didn't conflict with Emma's spotlight. The realization hurt more than their forgetting. "Block them for today," Marcus suggested. "Just for today. Let yourself exist without their demands." So I did. I turned off my phone entirely and let myself have one perfect day. We browsed the botanical gardens, had lunch at a food truck, saw the show. For 24 hours, I wasn't anyone's invisible safety net. I was just a Lisa birthday girl loved by a good man who saw me as the main character in my own life. When I turned my phone back on Sunday morning, I had 37 missed calls. 22 from Mom, 15 from Emma. The voicemail started concerned and escalated to furious. "Call your mother," the first one said. By the 10th, "I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but this behavior is unacceptable." By the 20th, "Emma thinks you hate the baby. Is that what this is about, jealousy?" I deleted them all without listening to the rest, but I couldn't avoid them forever. Dad's cardiac rehab appointment was Monday, and I'd promised to drive him. When I arrived at my parents' house, the atmosphere was arctic. Mom answered the door with pursed lips and disappointed eyes. "Well," she said, "look who remembered she has a family." "Hi, Mom. Is Dad ready?" "He's in the living room, Elisa." Her voice shifted to the tone she'd used when I was young and had disappointed her. "What you did yesterday was cruel. Emma had a panic attack at her own gender reveal. In front of Bradley's family." "What I did? I kept my voice level, channeling Dr. Reeves' coaching about not accepting blame for others' emotions. I celebrated my birthday, the birthday you forgot." "That's not the point," Mom's voice rose. "Family comes first, always. I thought we raised you better than this." "You raised me to disappear," I said quietly, "to make myself small so Emma could be big, to give everything and expect nothing. And I did that for 32 years, but not yesterday. Yesterday was mine." Mom stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "I don't know what's gotten into you. That therapist is filling your head with selfish ideas." "The only selfish idea she's given me is that I might matter too," I said. "Crazy thought, right?" Dad appeared in the doorway, moving slowly but steadily. "Ready when you are, kiddo. Happy belated birthday, by the way." At least someone remembered. I helped him to the car, leaving Mom speechless in the doorway. The ride to rehab was quiet until Dad finally spoke. "It's a girl, by the way. Emma's having a girl." "That's nice," I said neutrally. Pink explosions everywhere. Glitter in places glitter should never be. He chuckled weakly. "Your mother went overboard as usual. Spent a fortune we don't have." "Dad." I know. You'll handle it. You always do." He stared out the window. "Except you shouldn't have to. No one should have to buy their family's love." "I'm not buying anything," I protested. "Aren't you?" He turned to look at me. $250,000 worth of trying to matter as much as your sister. But here's the thing, kiddo. You could give us $1 million and Emma would still be the sun we orbit around. It's not fair. Hell, it's not even rational. But your mother, she sees herself in Emma, the pretty one, the charming one, the one who makes life look easy. And I'm the one who makes life possible, I said bitterly. Yeah, he agreed simply. And we let you. God help us, we let a 23-year-old kid take on our failures because it was easier than admitting we were drowning. We rode in silence the rest of the way. During his rehab session, I sat in the waiting room and made a decision. Not a dramatic one, not yet, but a shift. I reduced the payments again. Not to nothing. I couldn't leave them completely stranded, but enough that I could put $1,000 in my own savings that month. Enough that when Marcus suggested we start looking at houses, I could say yes without calculating how it would affect my parents' budget. 2 weeks after my birthday, I discovered the real reason for Emma's desperation. Marcus had been right. Their financial situation was dire, but it was worse than we'd thought. I'd stopped by my parents' house to drop off Dad's medication when I found Emma in the kitchen, crying over a stack of papers. "What's wrong?" I asked, despite every instinct screaming to walk away. She looked up, mascara streaming. "Nothing. Everything. God, Elisa, I've made such a mess." For once, the tears seemed genuine. I sat across from her, maintaining distance but present. "Bradley's business went under," she said. "Officially, bankruptcy. We're going to lose the house." "I'm sorry," I said, meaning it. Whatever our issues, I didn't wish homelessness on anyone. "His parents blame me," she continued. "Say I pressured him into bad investments, like I knew anything about cryptocurrency or whatever he was doing." She pushed the papers toward me. Legal documents, foreclosure notices, credit card statements with numbers that made my eyes water. "Emma, how did it get this bad?" "I don't know." She was sobbing now. "We just kept thinking the next deal would fix everything. Bradley kept saying he had it handled, and I kept spending because that's what successful people do, right? They project success. I thought of all the Instagram posts, the designer clothes, the Tesla, projecting success while drowning in debt. The irony wasn't lost on me. We'd both been bleeding money we didn't have just for different audiences. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "Move in here," she said, gesturing around our parents' kitchen. "Mom already said yes, just temporarily until we figure things out." My blood ran cold. Here with a new baby. What choice do I have? She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "Unless, Elisa, I know we haven't been close, but you've always been the smart one with money. Is there any way you could help just a loan? I'd pay you back, I swear." There it was, the ask I'd been waiting for. Emma thought I had secret wealth, and now she wanted her share. "I can't," I said simply. "I don't have money to lend." Her expression hardened instantly. Right, of course not. Perfect Elisa sitting on her savings while the rest of us struggle. "Emma." "No, I get it. You've always resented me. This is your revenge, isn't it, watching me fail?" She stormed out, leaving me alone with her financial ruins spread across the table. I gathered them up and did what I always did. I analyzed. The situation was catastrophic. Without significant help, they'd be bankrupt within months. But for the first time in 9 years, I didn't calculate how to fix it. Instead, I left the papers neatly stacked and walked out. That night, I told Marcus about the encounter. "She's going to blame you," he predicted. "When they can't bail her out, when the reality hits, you'll become the villain who could have saved them but chose not to." "Let her," I said, surprising myself with the firmness. "I've been the villain and the victim and the invisible savior. None of it mattered. At least as the villain, I get to keep my money." "Our money," he corrected, pulling me close. "We're a team, remember." "Our money." I agreed, the words feeling foreign but right. For our life, our future, our family. "Speaking of which," he pulled out a real estate listing. "There's an open house next weekend. 3 bedrooms, nice yard, good school district for someday." For someday. For the children we might have. For the life we were building while my family of origin crumbled. It felt like betrayal and liberation all at once. "Yes," I said. "Let's go see it." The birthday betrayal had been a turning point, not just in how I saw my family, but in how I saw myself. I wasn't the supporting character in Emma's drama, or the invisible foundation propping up my parents' house of cards. I was 32 years old, loved by a good man, building a career and a future. I had a therapist who challenged me and friends who saw me. I had worth beyond my utility. And slowly, painfully, I was learning that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Aunt Martha was a force of nature wrapped in sensible shoes and sharp wit. At 72, Dad's older sister had spent 30 years as a federal judge, and retirement hadn't dulled her ability to see through people's facades. She'd been watching our family dynamics from the sidelines for decades, occasionally making pointed comments that Mom dismissed as Martha being Martha. I hadn't expected to see her at Cousin Sarah's wedding in May, but there she stood by the punch bowl, silver hair, gleaming eyes taking in everything with judicial precision. "Elisa," she said, pulling me into a lavender-scented hug. "You look tired, dear." "Just busy." I deflected the automatic response. Her gray eyes studied me. "Where's that nice young man of yours, Marcus?" "Getting us drinks." I glanced around the reception hall. "Have you seen Mom and Dad?" "Oh, yes. They're at table 3 with Emma and her husband. Or rather, with Emma. The husband seems to have disappeared somewhere between the ceremony and cocktail hour." There was weight in her words. Aunt Martha never spoke carelessly. "Bradley had a business call." I explained, not sure why I was defending him. "Of course he did." She sipped her punch thoughtfully. "Tell me, how long have you been supporting your parents financially?" The question hit like cold water. Please don't insult my intelligence, dear. I've been watching this family for longer than you've been alive. I know the signs of financial strain, and I know the signs of someone carrying burdens they shouldn't. I looked around nervously, but the reception was loud enough to cover our conversation. "It's complicated." "It always is." She set down her cup and fixed me with her courtroom stare. "Your father mentioned the second mortgage. For Emma's house down payment, wasn't it?" I nodded reluctantly. "And the medical bills from his surgery. The ones that mysteriously got paid despite him being out of work. Aunt Martha. And let's see, there was Emma's wedding, the failed boutique, the constant gifts your mother bestows on her favorite child. All while you live in that tiny apartment and drive a car old enough to vote. How do you—" "I'm a judge, dear. Retired or not, I investigate. Plus, your cousin David works at the same bank as your parents. He's noticed things. Worried things." Marcus appeared with our drinks, sensing the tension immediately. "Judge Coleman," he said warmly. "Good to see you again." "Marcus." She smiled, the expression transforming her stern features. "I was just telling Elisa how tired she looks. Perhaps you could convince her to take a vacation, somewhere far from family obligations." "I've been trying," he said, sliding an arm around my waist. "Maybe you'll have better luck." The three of us found a quiet corner where Aunt Martha continued her gentle interrogation. By the time the cake was cut, she'd extracted enough truth to piece together the full picture. 9 years, she said quietly. "My God, Elisa, and Lynn doesn't know." "Dad knows. He figured it out a couple of years ago, but Mom—" I shrugged helplessly. "Still lost in Emma-land." Aunt Martha's expression was grim. "I've watched my brother enable this dysfunction for decades, but I never imagined it had gotten this bad." Emma chose that moment to sweep past complaining loudly about the wedding food not being organic and gluten-free. Her bump was prominently displayed in a designer dress that probably cost more than the bride's gown. "That one," Aunt Martha said, watching Emma commandeer the photographer for an impromptu maternity shoot, "is a master manipulator. Always has been, even as a child." "She's struggling now," I said. "Bradley's business failed. They're moving in with Mom and Dad." "Of course they are." The disgust in her voice was palpable. "And let me guess, Lynn is thrilled to have her baby girl home." "Ecstatic," I confirmed. Aunt Martha was quiet for a moment, then seemed to reach a decision. "This needs to stop. An intervention, perhaps. Get everything out in the open." "No," I said quickly. I appreciate the thought, but it needs to happen on my terms when I'm ready. She studied me with those sharp eyes. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. Very well. But Elisa, secrets have a way of exploding when you least expect them. Better to control the detonation than be caught in the blast. 2 weeks later, her words proved prophetic. It started with Emma convincing Mom to ask me to co-sign a loan. I was at their house helping Dad with his physical therapy exercises when Mom cornered me in the kitchen. "Sweetheart, I need to ask you something." She began twisting her hands nervously. "You know Emma and Bradley are going through a rough patch." "Mom, no," I said, already knowing where this was going. "You haven't even heard the question." "The answer is still no. I'm not co-signing anything." Her face crumpled. "But it's just to help them get back on their feet. A small business loan, $20,000. You have good credit, and with your stable job—" "My credit is good because I don't co-sign loans for people facing bankruptcy," I said firmly. "And my job is stable because I show up every day, not because I chase get-rich-quick schemes." "How can you be so cruel?" Tears started flowing. "Your sister needs help." "Then help her," I suggested. "Oh, wait, you can't. Because you're already leveraged to the hilt, because you took out a second mortgage for her, because you've spent decades throwing good money after bad." The words came out harsher than intended, but I didn't take them back. Mom stared at me like I'd slapped her. "I don't know what's happened to you," she whispered. "That therapist has turned you against your own family." "No, Mom. My family turned me into a bank account, and my therapist helped me realize I'm actually a person." I left her crying in the kitchen and found Dad in the living room pretending he hadn't heard everything. "She means well," he said quietly. "So did I replied. "For 9 years I meant well. Look where it got me." That night, Emma called. Not texted, actually called, which meant she was desperate. "You made Mom cry," she accused without preamble. "Mom made Mom cry," I corrected. "I just declined to enable more bad decisions." "Enable, is that what you call helping family God, Elisa? When did you become so cold?" "Probably around year 6 of secretly paying your bills." I said the words slipping out before I could stop them. Silence. Then, "I knew it. I knew you were hiding money. You've been lying to everyone pretending to be poor while sitting on wealth." "I wasn't sitting on anything. I was hemorrhaging money into your lifestyle while you took credit for support that didn't exist." "You're delusional," Emma spat. "Bradley's family has been helping my parents, not you." "Bradley's family cut you off months ago," I said calmly. "His mother told Marcus at a company event. They think you're a gold digger who ruined their son." The sharp intake of breath told me I'd hit a nerve. "You're lying," she said, but uncertainty colored her voice. "Call them yourself. Ask why they haven't returned your calls lately. Ask why Bradley's trust fund suddenly has new restrictions. Ask why his mother unfriended you on social media." "How dare you?" "I dare because I'm done, Emma. Done pretending, done enabling. Done being invisible so you can shine. You want Mom and Dad to know where the money really came from? Keep pushing. See what happens." I hung up my hands, shaking with adrenaline. Marcus, who'd been listening from the couch, opened his arms and I collapsed into them. "That felt like a declaration of war," he said. Maybe it was. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. Then Aunt Martha called with news that made everything click into place. "I had lunch with your mother's sister," she said. "Apparently there's going to be an announcement at the family reunion. Emma's pregnant with twins, not just one baby, and she's planning to ask the extended family to help support them since Bradley's having temporary setbacks. She's going to crowdfund her pregnancy from our relatives." I was incredulous. "Essentially. But here's the interesting part. She's been telling everyone that you've been hoarding family money, that you got an inheritance from someone and didn't share." "What inheritance from whom?" "The story varies. Sometimes it's a great aunt. Sometimes it's lottery winnings you're hiding. The point is, she's laying groundwork to make you the villain when you don't contribute to her fund." I laughed, actually laughed at the absurdity. So she's created an entire fiction where I'm secretly wealthy and selfish, while you've been secretly broke and generous, Aunt Martha concluded. Ironic, isn't it? What should I do? Whatever feels right to you, dear. But if it were me, I'd start documenting everything. Emma's playing a dangerous game, and she doesn't realize you hold all the actual cards. That night, Marcus and I updated our evidence folder. Bank statements, payment histories, 9 years of sacrifice annotated and organized. We even added Emma's social media posts showing off purchases funded by my invisible support. It's like preparing for trial, I said, watching him work. In a way it is, he agreed. The court of family opinion. The reunion invitation arrived the next week. Fancy cardstock professional printing, an expense my parents couldn't afford but somehow managed. Celebrating 60 years of love, Paul and Margaret Thompson. Your grandparents' anniversary, Marcus noted. Emma wouldn't dare make drama at that, would she? I thought about my sister, desperate and cornered, convinced I was the obstacle between her and financial salvation. She absolutely would, I said with certainty. In fact, I think that's exactly what she's planning. Marcus pulled me close. Whatever happens, we face it together. No more carrying this alone. No more, I agreed. But as I stared at the invitation, I wondered if I was ready for what came next. 9 years of secrets were about to explode into the light, and Aunt Martha was right. It was better to control the detonation. I just hoped I'd survive the blast. The 2 months before the reunion passed in a blur of mounting tension and small betrayals. Emma's return to our parents' house had transformed their modest home into a pressure cooker of financial stress and emotional manipulation. I watched from a careful distance as the situation deteriorated each week, bringing new evidence that our family's house of cards was collapsing. Bradley filed for divorce in early June. I heard about it not from Emma or my parents, but from Marcus's colleague whose wife worked at the courthouse. The papers cited irreconcilable differences, but the real story emerged through whispers and gossip. Bradley's family had discovered Emma had been forging his signature on loan applications, opening credit cards in his name, and lying about their assets. I stared at Marcus across our dinner table fork suspended midway to my mouth. Fraud, he confirmed. His family's lawyers found everything during the bankruptcy proceedings. She'd taken out nearly $100,000 in his name without his knowledge. But that's criminal. Which is why they're not pressing charges yet. The divorce agreement includes her taking responsibility for all the debts she created in exchange for them not pursuing legal action. I thought about my parents already drowning in their own debt, now housing a pregnant woman facing financial ruin and potential criminal charges. They don't know, do they, Mom and Dad? Would it matter if they did? Marcus asked gently. Your mom would find a way to make Emma the victim. He was right. The next week proved it when I stopped by to drop off Dad's cardiac medication and found Mom in tears at the kitchen table. That horrible family, she sobbed, abandoning Emma when she needs them most. What kind of people divorce a pregnant woman? The kind whose credit she destroyed, I suggested, unable to help myself. Mom's tears stopped, instantly replaced by cold fury. How dare you? Your sister is going through the worst time of her life and you're making jokes. I'm stating facts, Mom. Emma committed fraud. She's lucky she's not in jail. Get out. The words were quiet but firm. Get out of my house. Mom. I said, get out. I don't know what's happened to you, but this isn't the daughter I raised. The Elisa I knew would help her family not kick them when they're down. I left, but not before seeing Emma watching from the hallway, a small smile playing at her lips. She'd won this round, cementing her position as the victim, while I became the heartless villain. Dad called that night voice rough with exhaustion. She didn't mean it, kiddo. Your mother's just stressed. She meant it, I said. And you know what? That's okay. I'm tired of pretending this is normal, Dad. Tired of being punished for not enabling Emma's destruction. What do you want me to do? He asked helplessly. She's my wife. Emma's my daughter. The babies are my grandchildren. I can't just abandon them. I'm your daughter, too, I reminded him, but somehow everyone forgets that. The silence stretched between us before he quietly said, I haven't forgotten. I see you, Elisa. I see everything you've done, but seeing and doing something about it are two different things, and I'm too old and tired for this fight. Then I'll fight it alone, I said and hung up. Marcus found me on the balcony later staring at the city lights. Want to talk about it? I'm done talking, I said, done explaining, done justifying my boundaries. If they want to drown in Emma's chaos, that's their choice, but I'm not going down with them. Good, he said simply, because I have news. The house we looked at our offer was accepted. I turned to stare at him. What? I know we said we'd decide together, but I saw how you looked at it, how you touched the kitchen counters like they were a promise. So I made an executive decision. He pulled papers from his jacket. We close in 30 days. Our life, Elisa, not theirs. I launched myself into his arms, crying tears that had nothing to do with sadness. Our life, I repeated. God, that sounds beautiful. There's more, he said when I'd calmed down. I think we should get married before the reunion. Just us, maybe a few friends. Something small in ours. But what about nothing? He interrupted. This isn't about them. This is about us starting our life together without their drama as the backdrop. What do you say? Yes, I breathed. Yes to all of it. We married 2 weeks later in the courthouse with Aunt Martha and 2 friends as witnesses. I wore a simple white dress that cost less than one of Emma's designer purses. Marcus's eyes when he saw me were worth more than any elaborate wedding could have been. You sure you want to do this? The judge asked with a wink. Last chance to run. Never been more sure of anything, I said, taking Marcus's hands. The vows were simple, the ceremony brief, but the promises we made carried the weight of everything we'd been through. In sickness and in health, seemed particularly poignant after my hospital stay. For richer or for poorer, held special meaning when he'd seen my financial struggles laid bare. I now pronounce you husband and wife. The judge declared, and Marcus kissed me like we had all the time in the world because we did. Our time, our world, our life. Aunt Martha took us to lunch afterward, raising her champagne glass with tears in her eyes. To new beginnings and healthy boundaries. She toasted, may you build the life you deserve, not the one others demand. We moved into our house the following week. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen with counter space for 2 people to cook together, and a yard where we could plant a garden. It was everything my studio apartment hadn't been. Spacious, bright, and most importantly, ours. I love you, Marcus said as we stood in our empty living room boxes piled around us. I love that you're my wife. I love that we're building this together. I love that I can actually say we now and mean it, I replied. No more I against the world. We didn't tell my family about the marriage or the house. Let them find out when they found out. I was done managing their emotions or cushioning their reactions. Emma escalated her campaign as the reunion approached. She created a social media group for family members posting ultrasound photos and baby registry links with captions about needing all the help we can get during this difficult time. She shared articles about the importance of family support, tagged relatives in posts about how blessed she was to have such a giving family. Then came the masterstroke. A week before the reunion, she posted in the family group, I've heard some hurtful rumors about family members who could help but choose not to. Remember, what goes around comes around. Those who have been blessed should share their blessings. The subtext wasn't subtle. Several relatives reached out to me fishing for information about this supposed windfall I was hiding. I gave them all the same response. I'm not sure what Emma's told you, but there's no secret inheritance or lottery winnings, just a lot of fiction. Marcus monitored the situation like a general preparing for battle. She's setting you up, he observed, making sure everyone's primed to see you as the selfish one when the truth comes out. Let her, I said, surprising myself with my calm. I've been the villain in her story for months now, At least if the truth comes out, I'll be the villain with receipts. 3 days before the reunion, Dad had another cardiac event. Not a full heart attack, but what the doctors called unstable angina, brought on by stress. I spent hours at the hospital coordinating with doctors, managing insurance claims, all while Mom pointedly ignored me in favor of fussing over Emma's swollen ankles. His heart can't take much more of this, the cardiologist told me privately. The stress levels need to come down or we're looking at a major event within the year. I looked through the window at Dad's hospital room where Emma was taking selfies with him for her social media and made a decision. The truth needed to come out not for my vindication, but for his survival. The stress of maintaining this fiction was literally killing him. That night, I sat with Marcus and Aunt Martha strategizing. We had the evidence, the documentation, the receipts, but how to reveal it without causing the very stress that might harm Dad further? What if you didn't reveal it? Aunt Martha suggested. What if it revealed itself? What do you mean? She smiled, the expression sharp with judicial wisdom. Emma's greed will be her undoing. She's created a narrative where you're hiding money. What happens when she pushes that narrative in front of 50 relatives who start asking questions she can't answer? She'll double down, I predicted. Make wilder accusations. Exactly. And that's when you simply present facts. No drama, no emotion, just facts. Aunt Martha leaned back. Give her enough rope, as they say. The plan formed itself. I wouldn't go to the reunion planning to expose anything, but I'd go prepared with Marcus beside me and the truth at my fingertips. When Emma inevitably pushed her narrative, I'd be ready with calm, documented reality. You sure about this? Marcus asked that night as we prepared for bed in our new home. Once it's out there, you can't take it back. I thought about Dad in the hospital bed, Mom's tears, Emma's manipulations, and 9 years of invisible sacrifice. It's already out there, I said. The truth, I mean. It exists whether they acknowledge it or not. All I'm doing is making it visible. Visible, he repeated, after 9 years of invisibility. Terrifying, right? He pulled me close. You're the bravest person I know. And tomorrow when everything explodes, remember, you're not alone. You have a husband who adores you, a home that's yours, and a future that doesn't depend on their approval. I fell asleep in his arms wearing my new wedding ring in our house that my family didn't even know existed. The unraveling was almost complete. Tomorrow would bring the reunion, the confrontation, and most likely the end of my family as I knew it. But sometimes endings were really beginnings in disguise. And as I drifted off, I realized I was ready for whatever came next. The invisible daughter was about to become impossible to ignore. The Riverside Country Club sprawled across manicured acres like a monument to old money and older traditions. As Marcus pulled our car into the parking lot, I could see the white event tents already bustling with relatives arriving for my grandparents' 60th anniversary celebration. The same venue where Emma had her fairy tale wedding, where my parents had renewed their vows at 25 years, where family milestones were marked with champagne and carefully orchestrated photos. "Ready?" Marcus asked, squeezing my hand. "No," I admitted. "But let's do this anyway." I dressed carefully. A navy dress that was elegant without being flashy. My grandmother's pearl earrings that Mom had given me years ago, before Emma became her whole world. Marcus looked handsome in his gray suit, his wedding ring catching the morning light. We decided not to hide our marriage, but not to announce it either. Let them notice or not. Aunt Martha met us at the entrance, resplendent in emerald green. "Darling," she said, kissing my cheek, "you look lovely, and married if I'm not mistaken." Her sharp eyes had caught our rings immediately. 2 weeks ago, Marcus confirmed. Courthouse wedding. "Good for you," she said firmly. "Your life, your choices. Now let me brief you on the situation inside. Emma's been here since dawn, directing everything like she's the mother of the bride. Your mother is letting her naturally. Your father looks exhausted. He should still be resting after his hospital stay. And the extended family, buzzing with curiosity about Emma's situation and these rumors about your supposed secret wealth. She's been working the room, poor pregnant abandoned wife, while heavily hinting that family should help family. Aunt Martha's expression was grim. I give it an hour before she makes her move. We entered together a small unit of sanity in what promised to be a circus. The country club's main ballroom had been transformed with white and gold decorations, photos of my grandparents through the decades adorning every surface. It was beautiful and expensive. Another bill I wondered who would pay. Elisa. My grandmother spotted me first, her weathered face breaking into genuine joy. "There's my girl." I hugged her carefully, aware of her fragile bones. Grandpa joined us, his eyes twinkling. "About time you showed up. Martha tells us congratulations are in order." "We got married," I confirmed quietly. "Small ceremony. We wanted something just for us." "Smart," Grandpa said, glancing across the room where Emma held court with a group of aunts, her bump prominently displayed. Sometimes the best celebrations are the quiet ones. We made our rounds greeting relatives I hadn't seen in years. Most were warm but curious, their eyes searching for signs of the wealth Emma had been hinting at. I kept my responses bland, deflecting questions about my success and redirecting conversations to safer topics. "There she is," Emma's voice carried across the room an hour into the event. My sister finally gracing us with her presence. She approached with the determined waddle of late pregnancy, several cousins in her wake. Her dress probably cost more than my entire outfit, her hair and makeup professionally done. Even pregnant with twins and facing bankruptcy, she maintained the facade of prosperity. "Emma," I said neutrally, "you look well." "Oh, struggling through." She placed a protective hand on her belly, ensuring everyone noticed. "It's been so hard without Bradley, but family gets you through, right? That's what family's for." The dig wasn't subtle. Neither was the way she studied my dress, my jewelry, clearly calculating their value. Elisa, cousin Jennifer, chimed in. "Emma was just telling us about your lottery win. So exciting. Which one was it?" I felt Marcus tense beside me. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I haven't won any lottery." Emma's laugh tinkled falsely. "Oh, Elisa's always been so private about money. Almost secretive, really. But we all know the truth, don't we? Nobody drives the same car for 15 years unless they're either very poor or hiding something." "Maybe they're just practical," Aunt Martha interjected smoothly. "Not everyone needs a new Tesla every year." Emma's eyes flashed, but she maintained her smile. "Of course, practical Elisa. Always so careful with money, unlike the rest of us who actually help family when they need it." "Speaking of help," Jennifer said awkwardly, "Emma mentioned you might all be setting up a family fund for the twins." And there it was, the pitch, Emma's real reason for all this groundwork. "Did she—" I kept my voice level. "That's interesting. I wasn't aware our family did funds." "Well, desperate times," Emma said, her voice catching dramatically. "Some of us are facing real hardship while others sit on their wealth. But I'm sure when push comes to shove, family takes care of family. Right, Elisa?" The group was watching now, tension crackling. This was the moment Emma had been building toward. Public pressure to either admit to having money or look like the selfish sister who wouldn't help. "You're right," I said calmly. "Family should take care of family, which is why I've been taking care of Mom and Dad for the past 9 years. The words landed like a bomb. Emma's face went white, then red. "What are you talking about?" she managed. "Oh, didn't you know?" I pulled out my phone where I'd queued up a simple spreadsheet. $247,000 over 9 years. Mortgage payments, medical bills, credit cards, including the ones you maxed out buying designer goods. "You're lying," Emma's voice rose. "Everyone knows Bradley's family has been helping them." "Bradley's family cut you off over a year ago," I said evenly. "His mother confirmed it at a company event. They haven't given our parents a cent. Every mysterious payment, every lucky windfall, every bill that magically got paid, that was me. The relatives around us had gone silent, eyes wide. Emma looked like a cornered animal. "If that's true, why hide it?" she demanded. "Why all the secrecy?" "I didn't hide it. I just didn't advertise it. There's a difference between being generous and being a martyr. I chose to help quietly because it wasn't about getting credit." "Prove it," she hissed. "If you really paid all that, prove it." This was the crossroads. I could walk away, let her keep her narrative, or I could end this once and for all. I looked at Marcus, who nodded slightly, then at Aunt Martha, whose expression was grimly satisfied. Finally at my parents, who had approached during the commotion. Dad looked stricken. Mom looked confused. "Okay," I said simply. I opened the cloud folder Marcus had prepared and connected my phone to the large screen the country club used for presentations. "Let's look at some receipts." What followed was 15 minutes of methodical destruction. Bank statements showing automatic payments, credit card records with Emma's purchases highlighted, medical bills with my payment confirmations, the second mortgage documents with my account covering the payments. The room was dead silent except for the click of each new document appearing on screen. "The wedding," I said, showing invoices. $23,000. Emma told everyone Bradley's family paid. They didn't. Click. "Dad's surgery, $30,000 after insurance, paid in full from my savings." Click. "Mom's credit cards maxed out buying Emma gifts, $15,000 paid off over 18 months." Click, click, click. 9 years of invisible sacrifice made visible in devastating detail. "This is cruel," Emma whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Humiliating me at Grandma and Grandpa's anniversary." "No," I said firmly. "What's cruel is letting me bankrupt myself while you took credit. What's cruel is Mom calling me selfish while you spent money I didn't have. What's cruel is Dad lying in a hospital bed stressed about bills I was secretly paying while you posted selfies for sympathy." I turned to face the assembled relatives, many of whom had been prepared to fund Emma's lifestyle based on her lies. "I'm not wealthy. I'm not hiding lottery winnings or secret inheritances. I'm a 32-year-old accountant who spent 9 years hemorrhaging money I couldn't afford to lose because I thought that's what love looked like. I was wrong." The screen showed one final document, a photo of Marcus and me at the courthouse exchanging rings. 2 weeks ago, I married the man who helped me realize I deserve better. We bought a house, a small one but ours. We're building a life based on truth, not manipulation, and we're done funding anyone else's fantasy. I turned off the screen and faced my family. Mom had sunk into a chair, face pale. Dad stood behind her, tears on his cheeks. Emma held her belly like a shield mouth opening and closing without sound. "I love you all," I said quietly, "but I'm done disappearing so others can shine. Done being the villain in Emma's fiction. Done pretending this is normal or healthy or what family means." "How could you," Mom finally whispered, "airing our business like this?" "How could I not?" I countered. "Dad's in and out of the hospital from stress. Emma's facing fraud charges. You're about to lose your house, and somehow I'm still the bad guy for not giving more no. This ends now." "So you're abandoning us," Emma found her voice. "When I'm pregnant and alone." "I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm just no longer financing your life. There's a difference." "Some sister you are," she spat. "Some daughter." "Yeah," I agreed. "Some daughter. The one who gave $250,000 and got called selfish for not giving more. The one who saved your home while being told she never helped. The invisible one who's finally visible." I took Marcus's hand. "We should go. Happy anniversary, Grandma and Grandpa. I'm sorry it happened this way." "Don't you dare leave." Mom stood shaking. "You've ruined everything." "No, Mom, I've revealed everything. There's a difference." We walked out together, Marcus, Aunt Martha, and me. Behind us, the room exploded into chaos. Relatives demanding explanations. Emma sobbing dramatically, Mom's voice rising in hysteria. In the parking lot, I stopped and breathed. The sun was shining. Birds were singing. The world hadn't ended. You did it, Marcus said, pulling me close. You made yourself visible. Was it worth it? I asked, already knowing the answer. Ask me in a year, I said, when the dust settles and we see what's left. Aunt Martha hugged us both. I'm proud of you, dear. That took tremendous courage. What happens now? I asked. Now, she smiled. Now you go home to your house with your husband and live your life. Let them sort through the wreckage. You've carried them long enough. As we drove away, my phone exploded with messages. I turned it off without looking. Tomorrow would bring the aftermath, the calls, the accusations, the family choosing sides. But today I was visible. Today I was free. And that was enough. The Riverside Country Club's ballroom felt like a courtroom. As I stood there, the projection screen behind me still displaying the last image of Marcus and me exchanging rings at the courthouse. 50 relatives stared in stunned silence, the weight of 9 years of receipts having just shattered Emma's carefully constructed fiction in the span of 15 minutes. Mom's voice cracked through the silence first. How dare you, how absolutely dare you turn your grandparents' celebration into this attack on your family. Attack. I kept my voice level, though my hands trembled. Showing proof of financial support is an attack. Then what do you call Emma's months of spreading lies about me hoarding wealth? I call it a misunderstanding. Mom was on her feet now, face flushed. One that could have been handled privately with dignity. Like Emma handled it privately when she created a social media group to crowdfund from our relatives. I gestured to the aunts and cousins who'd been ready to open their wallets. Or when she told everyone I won the lottery but was too selfish to share. You're twisting everything, Emma cried, mascara running in black rivers. I never said, family takes care of family, I quoted. Unless the family member is me, apparently. Then family takes and takes and takes while calling me selfish for having limits. Dad stepped forward, his face gray with exhaustion and something that might have been shame. Elisa, please. Not here. Not like this. Then where Dad? When? My voice broke slightly. In another 9 years, when I've given $500,000 when you're back in the hospital because the stress is killing you, when Mom's still praising Emma for breathing while I'm invisible. Invisible. Mom laughed bitterly. You're standing here destroying our family in front of everyone and you call yourself invisible. For 9 years, I was invisible. 9 years of sacrifice while Emma got credit for help that didn't exist. 9 years of being called selfish and cold while bankrupting myself for you. So yes, Mom, invisible. If you wanted recognition, you should have said something. Emma interjected, one hand on her swollen belly, instead of this sneaky, underhanded, sneaky. Aunt Martha's voice cut through like a blade. The only sneaky one here is you, Emma, telling people Elisa has hidden wealth while she was paying your bills. That's not sneaky, that's fraudulent. Speaking of which, how are those fraud charges? Bradley's family isn't pressing looking. Emma went white. The relatives murmured, piecing together implications. That's enough, Mom turned on Aunt Martha. You've always hated Emma, been jealous of her success. What success? I couldn't help the bitter laugh. The failed boutique, the maxed out credit cards, the husband who divorced her for financial fraud. Or do you mean the success of convincing you to take a second mortgage for her house down payment while I paid the bills? At least Emma loves us. Mom's voice rose to a shriek. At least she visits, calls, shares her life. All you do is judge us. All I did was save you, I said quietly. Over and over, without thanks, without acknowledgement, without even basic respect. But you're right. Emma loves you. She loves you so much she was willing to let you lose everything as long as she got hers. How dare Emma started. The bank called last week, I interrupted, about the second mortgage. You're 3 months behind because I reduced my payments. Did Emma offer to help? Did she sell her designer bags or jewelry? Or did she move back in and add more expenses while contributing nothing? The silence answered for her. You don't understand, Emma said desperately. I'm pregnant with twins. Abandoned. I have nothing. You have everything I paid for, I corrected. The wedding, the honeymoon, the clothes, the bags, the car, everything Mom bought you with credit cards I paid off. You just don't have my continuing subsidization. So that's it. Dad's voice was hollow. You're cutting us off, leaving us to drown. I'm letting you swim, I said. There's a difference. And if you drown, it won't be because I didn't throw enough life preservers. It'll be because you tied anchors to your own feet. Cruel, Mom whispered. So cruel, I didn't raise you to be this heartless. You didn't raise me at all. I said the truth, finally breaking free. You raised Emma, I raised myself, and then I raised you financially for 9 years, while you called me selfish for not giving more. Grandma, who'd been silent through the entire confrontation, suddenly stood. At 83, she commanded attention through presence alone. Enough, she said simply. Lynn, sit down. Emma, stop crying. Elisa, come here. I walked to my grandmother on unsteady legs. She took my hands in her weathered ones and studied my face. 9 years, she said softly. $250,000, and they never knew. Dad figured it out 2 years ago, I admitted. But he kept quiet. She nodded slowly, then raised her voice for everyone to hear. I'm changing my will. Effective immediately. Everything that was going to Lynn's family now goes to Elisa. The room exploded. Mom's wail, Emma's shriek, relatives gasping. But Grandma held up one hand and silence fell. A parent who can watch one child bleed for another and do nothing deserves nothing, she said firmly. A sister who takes credit for sacrifices she didn't make deserves nothing. Elisa has given enough, more than enough. Mother, you can't, Mom pleaded. Think of the babies, your great-grandchildren. I am thinking of them, Grandma said. I'm thinking they deserve better than to be raised by a woman who commits fraud and a grandmother who enables it. Perhaps struggle will teach what privilege couldn't. She turned back to me. You have a new house? Yes, I whispered. With Marcus, we just closed. Good. Build your life there. Fill it with love that doesn't cost everything you have. She kissed my forehead. I'm proud of you. Your grandfather and I have watched this dysfunction for years. We should have intervened sooner. You can't do this. Emma struggled to her feet. Elisa's lying. She's manipulating everyone. The receipts are fake. Fake. I pulled out my phone again. Should we call the bank, the hospital, the credit card companies, verify every payment in real time? This is insane. She turned to the relatives. You all see what she's doing, right? Destroying our family for attention. But the relatives were already backing away, the spell of her victim narrative broken. They'd seen the receipts, heard the admissions, understood they'd almost been scammed into funding a con artist's lifestyle. We should go, Marcus said quietly beside me. You've said what needed saying. I nodded, suddenly exhausted. But as we turned to leave, Mom's voice stopped us. If you walk out now, don't come back. You're no daughter of mine. I turned to face her one last time. I haven't been your daughter for years, Mom. I've been your bank account, and that account is now closed. I have a heart condition, Dad called out desperately. The stress of truth, I asked, or the stress of maintaining lies because I've been managing your heart condition for years, Dad. Every bill, every payment, every sacrifice, while you let Mom praise Emma and call me selfish. Your stress is not my responsibility anymore. So you'll let me die, his voice cracked. I'll let you live, I corrected, on your own terms with your own choices facing your own consequences, like adults do. Elisa. Emma's voice turned wheedling. Please, I know we've had our differences, but think of the babies, your nieces or nephews. Don't let them suffer for our mistakes. I'm not letting them do anything, I said firmly. You're their mother. Figure it out. Maybe sell some of those designer bags, maybe get a job, maybe ask Bradley's family for help. Oh wait, they've seen who you really are too. You're going to regret this, she hissed. When you're alone and bitter with just your money for company, I have a husband, I interrupted. A home, a future. Everything you said I'd never have because I was too selfish. Turns out the only thing I was too selfish for was continuing to fund your delusions. We walked out, then Marcus's hand steady in mine, Aunt Martha flanking us like a bodyguard. Behind us, chaos erupted. Mom sobbing, Emma shrieking, relatives arguing. Grandpa's voice rose above the rest. Paul, get the car, party's over. In the parking lot, I leaned against our car and let the reaction hit. Trembling nausea, the weight of bridges burning behind me. You did it, Marcus said, pulling me close. It's over. Is it, I could hear shouting from inside the club, or is it just beginning? The lies are over, Aunt Martha said firmly. The truth is out. What comes next is their choice, not your responsibility. My phone vibrated constantly in my purse. 22 missed calls by the time we reached our car, just like the morning after Emma's gender reveal. But this time, I didn't need to wonder what they wanted. This time, I'd already given my answer. No more. As Marcus drove us away from the country club, away from my family's dysfunction toward our new home and new life, I thought about visibility. For 9 years, I'd been invisible by choice, thinking love meant sacrifice without recognition. But real love, the kind Marcus showed me, the kind Grandma had demonstrated, the kind I was learning to give myself, didn't require invisibility. It required presence, truth, and the courage to be seen as you really were. I'd been seen today, finally fully seen, not as the selfish sister or the absent daughter, but as the woman who'd given everything and asked for nothing until she learned she deserved better. The price of visibility was high, but the cost of invisibility had been higher, and I was done paying it. 22 missed calls had turned into 47 by the time we reached our new house. Text messages flooded in so fast my phone froze twice. Marcus gently took it from my shaking hands and powered it off. Tomorrow, he said firmly. Whatever fallout is coming can wait until tomorrow. But the fallout didn't wait. We'd barely been home an hour when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, I saw Aunt Martha standing on our porch, looking grim. I'm sorry to intrude, she said when I let her in, but I thought you should know what happened after you left. We settled in our living room, still box-filled but ours, while she delivered the news. Your father opened your email at the reunion, the one with all the documentation. He connected his laptop to the projection system and showed everyone the full 9-year history. My stomach dropped. Why? I think he'd reached his breaking point. Your mother was spinning the story, making you the villain, and he just snapped, stood up and said, enough lies, then proceeded to show every receipt, every payment, every sacrifice you'd made. Oh God, I sank onto the couch, his heart. He's fine, Aunt Martha assured me. Angry, but fine. The interesting part was your mother's reaction when she saw the actual numbers. The color drained from her face. I don't think she truly understood the scale until that moment. And Emma tried to maintain her victim act until your cousin Michael, he's a lawyer, remember, pointed out that several of her social media posts about family financial help could constitute fraud if she'd known the truth, which, given the evidence, seemed likely. I thought about Emma's posts carefully crafted to take credit for support she hadn't provided. Is he going to pursue it? No, but several relatives are demanding she return any money they've given her under false pretenses. Last I saw, she was screaming about stress being bad for the babies while your mother tried to calm everyone down. The babies, I repeated. I ruined their announcement at our grandparents' anniversary. You revealed the truth at a family gathering where Emma planned to fleece relatives, Aunt Martha corrected. The timing was hers, not yours. She set the stage. You just changed the script. Marcus brought us tea, his presence steady and calming. What about the grandparents? It was their day. Aunt Martha smiled. That's the best part. After your father's presentation, your grandfather stood up and said, well, this is certainly more interesting than our usual anniversary parties. Then he announced he's following his wife's lead, changing his will to favor those who show character over those who show up with their hands out. He didn't. He did. Also mentioned he's been keeping his own records. Apparently he's known about your support for years but stayed quiet to keep the peace. He's done with that now. We sat in silence, processing the implosion of my family's carefully maintained facades. Then Aunt Martha leaned forward, her expression serious. There's more. The country club manager approached your parents after most guests left. There's an outstanding balance for the event. $15,000. Of course there is. I laughed bitterly. Let me guess, they assumed I'd cover it. Your mother actually said, and I quote, "Elisa always handles these things. Even after everything revealed, she still expected you to pay." Did someone tell her I'm not? Your grandfather did. Told the manager the bill was Lynn and Robert's responsibility, not yours. Your mother became hysterical. Had to be sedated. I felt a pang of guilt quickly suppressed. Dr. Reeves would be proud. She'll process, Aunt Martha continued. Or she won't. Either way, it's not your problem anymore. After she left, Marcus and I unpacked in silence. Each box we opened in our new home felt like building something, while my old life crumbled. Around midnight, curiosity won. I turned on my phone. 93 missed calls, over 200 texts. I scrolled through without listening to voicemails, reading just enough to understand the progression. Emma's early texts. How could you? You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. Mom's please call. We need to talk. This isn't you. That therapist has brainwashed you. Dad's single message. I'm sorry for all of it. You deserved better. Then the tone shifted as word spread. Cousin Jennifer. I had no idea. Emma made it sound like you were rich and selfish. Uncle Pete. Your father showed us everything. $250,000 Christ kid. Why didn't you say something sooner? Various relatives' apologies shock anger at being deceived. Then as evening fell, the real consequences hit. Emma, the manager says we have to pay or they'll pursue legal action. This is your fault. Mom, your father's having chest pains. The stress you've caused might kill him. Emma again. Bradley's lawyer called. His family saw your presentation online. They're now pursuing fraud charges since you proved I knew where the money came from. That one made me sit up. Marcus, look at this. He read it, frowning. Someone filmed it and posted it online. A quick search confirmed it. One of my younger cousins had live-streamed the entire confrontation. Thompson family reunion drama was trending locally. The comments ranged from supportive to scathing, but the evidence was undeniable. This changes things, Marcus said. If Bradley's family has proof Emma knew about your support while claiming it was them, she could face actual charges. I finished. My phone rang, unknown number. Against better judgment, I answered. Elisa. The voice was unfamiliar. This is Patricia Whitmore, Bradley's mother. I apologize for calling so late, but I wanted to thank you. Thank me. For exposing Emma's lies. We knew she was problematic, but your evidence proves she committed deliberate fraud. Our lawyers are moving forward with charges. I thought you should know since your testimony might be needed. I don't know what to say. Say you'll cooperate. That woman nearly destroyed my son. He believed her lies about your family having money, thought he was marrying into wealth. She destroyed his credit, his reputation, his future. Someone needs to hold her accountable. After I hung up Marcus and I sat in stunned silence, the truth hadn't just freed me, it had triggered an avalanche. I didn't mean for this, I said quietly. The criminal charges the family imploding. I just wanted them to see me. You wanted the truth, Marcus corrected. Everything else is consequences of their lies, not your honesty. My phone buzzed with a new message. Dad again. Emma's been arrested, fraud charges. Your mother is inconsolable. I don't blame you, but I thought you should know. The words hit like a physical blow. My sister, pregnant with twins, arrested because I'd revealed the truth. The weight of it crushed against my chest. She committed fraud, Marcus reminded me gently. You didn't make her lie, steal, or forge documents. You just stopped enabling the cover-up. I know. But knowing didn't ease the guilt. Those babies, though, they didn't ask for any of this. Neither did you, he pointed out. Neither did your parents when Emma dragged them into debt. Neither did Bradley when she destroyed his credit. Choices have consequences. Emma's facing hers. A final message appeared, this one from Grandma. Stand firm, dear one. Truth is painful but necessary. Emma's children will be better served by honesty than by continuing the cycle of enablement. We love you. I turned off my phone and let Marcus lead me to bed. Tomorrow would bring lawyers, family warfare, and consequences I couldn't yet imagine. But tonight, in our home built on truth rather than lies, I slept without the weight of secrets. The reckoning had come. Not in the way I'd planned or wanted, but in the way truth demanded. And for the first time in 9 years, I wasn't responsible for managing the fallout. The invisible daughter had become visible, and the light was blinding everyone who'd grown comfortable in the dark. 3 months after the reunion, I stood in my kitchen kneading bread while rain pattered against the windows. The simple domesticity of the act. Flour on my hands, yeast working its quiet magic, felt like a small revolution after years of chaos. Marcus sat at our kitchen table sorting through mail that no longer contained past due bills for people who weren't us. Letter from your dad, he said, holding up an envelope. I wiped my hands on my apron, another small joy having an apron having time to use it, and took the letter. Dad's handwriting, shaky but determined, filled 2 pages. Dear Elisa, I'm writing because your mother still won't speak your name, and someone needs to document what's happened. For posterity or perhaps for my own sanity. Emma took a plea deal. 6 months house arrest, 3 years probation restitution to Bradley's family. The twins were born 2 weeks ago, healthy girls named Sophia and Olivia. Yes, after swearing she'd never use Olivia, she chose it anyway. Emma's living with us, ankle monitor and all. Your mother dotes on the babies and pretends the rest doesn't exist. The house is in foreclosure. We couldn't maintain the payments without your help, as you knew we couldn't. We're moving to a senior living apartment complex next month. 2 bedrooms. Emma and the babies will need to find other arrangements after her house arrest ends. Your mother still insists you destroyed our family. I've stopped arguing. The truth is, we destroyed it ourselves long before you ever said a word. You just stopped enabling our destruction. I sold my truck and some tools to pay back a fraction of what you gave us. The check is enclosed. It's not much, $3,000. But I needed to do something. Consider it a down payment on the apology you deserve. I'm proud of you for speaking up, for walking away, for building the life we never taught you how to have. Marcus seems like a good man, better than any of us deserved for you. Your grandmother was right. Love shouldn't cost everything. I'm sorry it took me 65 years to learn that lesson. With love and regret, Dad. The check fluttered to the table. $3,000 against $250,000. A gesture more than restitution, but a gesture that mattered. You okay? Marcus asked, reading my face. He sold his truck. He loved that truck. He loves you more. Just took him too long to show it. I folded the letter carefully and placed it in the drawer where I kept important things. Not with the old financial records. Those lived in a filing cabinet, evidence of a life I no longer led. But with our marriage certificate, the deed to our house, the ultrasound photo from my 8-week appointment that we hadn't told anyone about yet. Emma named one of the babies Olivia. I said, returning to my bread, after specifically saying she'd never use that name. Marcus laughed. Of course she did. Can't let you have anything even a name on her forbidden list. My phone buzzed with a text from Aunt Martha. Lunch Thursday, my treat. Have news about the will settlement. Grandma had passed peacefully in her sleep a month after the reunion, Grandpa following 2 weeks later. Their deaths felt like punctuation on the family drama, the ending of one story and the beginning of another. True to their word, they'd changed their wills. The family home would be sold, proceeds split between Aunt Martha and me. Emma and Mom would receive family photo albums and some sentimental items, nothing more. Fair, the estate lawyer had called it, considering the documentation of financial gifts already received. Cruel, Mom had sobbed at the will reading. Vindictive and cruel. I hadn't attended the funerals. The restraining order Emma had attempted to file made things complicated, even though it was denied. Frivolous, the judge had called it. You can't restrain someone for telling the truth, but it sent a clear message. I wasn't welcome in their version of family anymore. Lunch sounds good, I texted back to Aunt Martha. Want to meet my OB after second trimester ultrasound. Her response was immediate, darling, wonderful news, of course. The bread went into the oven and I settled next to Marcus, his hand finding my still flat belly automatically. In 3 months, everything had changed. My family of origin lay in ruins, but from those ashes we were building something new. Any regrets? Marcus asked our daily check-in. I considered the question honestly. Did I regret the pain caused? Yes. The timing at my grandparents' anniversary. Perhaps. The years of enabling that preceded it. Absolutely. But the truth itself. The freedom that followed. The life we were building. No, I said finally. No regrets about speaking up. Just regret it took so long. And Emma, any word. Dad says she had the twins, living with them during house arrest. I paused. I wonder if she'll learn anything from this. Doubt it, Marcus said gently. Some people see consequences as persecution, not education. He was right. The last communication from Emma before the restraining order attempt had been a letter blaming me for everything. Her arrest, her divorce, her financial ruin, even her complicated pregnancy. No acknowledgement of her own choices, no recognition of the pain she'd caused. Just anger that her carefully constructed house of cards had collapsed. Do you think the babies will be okay? I asked the question that haunted me most. They have a chance, Marcus said. Sometimes hitting rock bottom forces change. Maybe Emma will become the mother those girls need. Maybe your parents will learn from their mistakes with her. Or maybe they'll repeat the pattern, I said quietly. Maybe one twin will be the favorite and one will be invisible. Maybe, but that's not your responsibility. You can't save children who aren't yours from parents who won't change. The bread timer chimed and I pulled 2 perfect loaves from the oven. The smell filled our kitchen, yeasty and warm and complete. Such a simple thing, making bread. But I'd never had time before, too busy managing other people's lives, to create anything in my own. I want to send them pictures, I said suddenly, of the ultrasound. Not to reconnect, just so they know, so Dad knows something good came from all this pain. Marcus considered this. Your choice. But maybe wait until after the birth. See how you feel when our child is real and present, not just possibility. Our child. The words still felt surreal. After years of pouring everything into my family, the idea of creating my own felt revolutionary. A child who would know they were seen, valued, loved without condition or transaction. Dr. Reeves says it's normal, I said. The guilt, the urge to reconnect. She calls it extinction burst behavior, my own version. What else does she say? That healing isn't linear, that family patterns take generations to break, that choosing differently for our child is the best revenge against dysfunction. Marcus pulled me close and we sat in comfortable silence, the smell of fresh bread filling our home. Outside, neighbors walked dogs and children played normal life continuing, while my family navigated their new reality without my financial support. They'll survive, I said, not sure if I was trying to convince him or myself. Or they won't, Marcus said pragmatically. But either way, they'll do it as adults facing their own consequences, not as dependents draining their child dry. My phone buzzed with another message, Mom's number. I let it go to voicemail without checking. Some boundaries once set needed walls around them. 3 months since visibility. 3 months since truth. 3 months of learning who I was when I wasn't everyone else's safety net. Turns out I was a woman who baked bread, who grew tomatoes in her backyard, who went to therapy and prenatal appointments, who loved her husband and planned for her child, who had lunch with aunts who saw her worth and ignored calls from those who only saw her utility. I was visible now, not to everyone. Mom still wouldn't speak my name. Emma saw me only as the villain of her story, but to the people who mattered, to Marcus, to Aunt Martha, to the child growing inside me. Most importantly, to myself. And that visibility, that recognition of my own worth beyond what I could provide others, was worth every bridge burned to achieve it. The aftermath was messy, painful, complicated. But it was also mine, my life, my choices, my future. And for the first time in my entire life, that was enough. 1 year later, I stood in my backyard pushing Lily on the swing Marcus had installed the week she was born. 6 months old now, she giggled at the gentle motion, her chubby hands gripping the safety bar as autumn leaves danced around us. The garden I'd planted in those first weeks after the reunion had produced a surprising harvest. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs that filled our kitchen with fresh scents. "Letter came," Marcus called from the back door. "From your dad." I settled Lily in her bouncer and took the envelope. Dad's handwriting was steadier now, the stress medication and simplified life showing their effects. "Dear Elisa and family, happy birthday to little Lily. 6 months already. I can hardly believe it. The photo you sent is on my nightstand next to one of you at her age. The resemblance is striking. Life updates. Your mother and I are settled in the senior apartment. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, small but manageable. Emma moved out last month when her house arrest ended. She's renting a place with the twins, working at a daycare center that lets her bring them. It's honest work, perhaps the first in her life. Your mother has started therapy, Dr. Kingsley twice a week. She cried for the entire first 3 sessions, he says, but she keeps going. Last week, she asked me to tell you she's sorry. She's not ready to say it herself, but it's progress. Emma hasn't asked for money in 2 months. She's learning to budget, to live within means. The twins are thriving despite everything. They're crawling now into everything. Sophia looks like Emma, but Olivia reminds me of you at that age. Quiet, observant, taking it all in. I've been working part-time at Henderson's Hardware. Nothing much, but it covers our groceries and medications. It feels good to contribute rather than just take. I think I understand now why you kept helping secretly. The dignity of it. Though I wish you'd never had to learn that lesson so young. Your Aunt Martha says you're starting your own accounting practice. I'm not surprised. You always did have a head for numbers and a heart for helping people who deserve it. Choose your clients wisely. Not everyone who needs help should receive it. Another lesson learned too late. I dream sometimes that you'll visit, that I'll meet Lily in person, hold my granddaughter, tell her stories about her mother's strength. But I understand if that day never comes. Some bridges once burned can't be rebuilt. Some shouldn't be. Know that I love you, that I see you now, truly see you. And I'm amazed by who you've become despite us, or perhaps because of surviving us. Either way, you've broken the cycle. That little girl will never doubt her worth or her visibility. Happy birthday, Lily. May you inherit your mother's strength and your father's steadiness. May you always know you're loved. With love and respect, Dad and Grandpa, though I may never earn that title. I wiped away tears and showed Marcus the letter. He read it while bouncing Lily, his expression thoughtful. "He's trying," Marcus observed. "They all are in their way." I folded the letter carefully. Mom in therapy, Emma working an honest job, Dad contributing instead of taking. Maybe the shock was what they needed. Maybe, do you want to visit? I watched Lily grab for Marcus's nose, her whole face lighting up when she caught it. This little person who would never question her worth, never wonder if she mattered as much as a sibling, never sacrifice her future for parents who couldn't see her. Not yet, I decided. Maybe someday, when Lily's older, when I can trust they won't slip into old patterns, when seeing them doesn't feel like risking everything we've built. Fair enough. He handed Lily to me, ready for dinner at Aunt Martha's. The monthly dinners with Aunt Martha had become tradition. She'd sold her big house and bought a condo near us, claiming she wanted to be close to her favorite great-niece. She spoiled Lily, appropriately respected our boundaries, and never pushed for reconciliation I wasn't ready for. As I buckled Lily into her car seat, my phone buzzed with a notification from my business account. 3 new client inquiries for Thompson Accounting Services. I'd started small working from home, choosing clients carefully as Dad suggested. People who needed help and deserved it. Small business owners, single parents, elderly folks navigating retirement. No family drama, no emotional manipulation, just clean numbers and fair fees. "You know what today is?" Marcus asked as we drove to Aunt Martha's. Saturday. 1 year since we closed on the house, our first home anniversary. I smiled remembering that day. The weight of keys in my hand, the echo of empty rooms waiting to be filled, the freedom of a space that was ours alone. "Best decision we ever made," I said. "Second best," he corrected, glancing at Lily in the rearview mirror. "She's the best." Aunt Martha greeted us with her usual enthusiasm, immediately claiming Lily for snuggles. Her condo was warm and welcoming, photos of family members covering one wall. I noticed she'd added our wedding photo and several of Lily. "Wine for the adults, mush for the princess." She announced, settling us in her living room. "Now tell me about the business. How's the first quarter looking?" We talked shop while Lily played with soft blocks, occasionally interjecting her own babbled opinions. Normal conversation about normal life. No crisis, no manipulation, no guilt. Just family as it should be. "Your mother called," Aunt Martha mentioned over dessert. "Wanted your address. I told her she'd need to ask you directly." "Good boundary," I approved. "Did she say why?" "Something about a letter. She's been writing and rewriting it for weeks, according to your father. Therapy homework, I believe." "Maybe I'll give her the P.O. box," I mused. "Keep some distance, but allow communication." Smart. Protect your peace while allowing for growth. As we prepared to leave, Aunt Martha pulled me aside. "I'm proud of you, you know. The business, the baby, the boundaries. You've built something beautiful from the ashes." "We've built it," I corrected. "Marcus, you, Dr. Reeves. It takes a village." "A healthy village," she emphasized. "Not one that demands you burn yourself to keep others warm." Driving home, Lily asleep in her car seat, I reflected on the year. The pain of estrangement balanced against the peace of freedom, the guilt of boundaries warring with the joy of authentic life. It wasn't perfect. I still sometimes dreamed of the mother I wished I'd had, the sister who might have been a friend. But dreams weren't reality, and reality demanded I protect my daughter from the dysfunction that had nearly destroyed me. "Regrets?" Marcus asked our daily question as we pulled into our driveway. "No," I answered honestly. "Questions sometimes, what-ifs occasionally, but no regrets." Inside, I put Lily to bed while Marcus started the dishwasher. Such mundane tasks, but they felt sacred in their simplicity. No drama attached, no hidden costs, just life lived honestly. My phone showed 3 new text messages, 2 from clients, 1 from an unknown number. Curious, I opened it. "Elisa, this is Emma. I know we're not speaking, and I understand why. I just wanted you to know I'm in therapy too, working on accountability. The twins are good. I'm trying to be the mom they deserve. No response needed. Just wanted you to know." I stared at the message feeling something. Not forgiveness, exactly not yet, but maybe the first crack in the wall I'd built. "Everything okay?" Marcus asked, finding me in the nursery. I showed him the text. He read it, then pulled me close. "How does it feel?" "Like possibility," I said after a moment. "Not promise, not reconciliation, just possibility." "That's enough for now," he said. "More than enough." We stood together watching Lily sleep, her tiny chest rising and falling with perfect trust. She'd never know the weight of invisible sacrifice, the pain of conditional love, the exhaustion of buying affection you should receive freely. "We broke the cycle," I whispered. "You broke it," Marcus corrected. "That day at the reunion, every choice since, you broke it." But he was wrong. We broke it together. Me by speaking truth, him by showing me love didn't require payment, Aunt Martha, by demonstrating healthy family, Dr. Reeves, by teaching me boundaries, even my parents, by facing consequences that forced change. And Lily would never need to break it because she'd never inherit it. She'd grow up visible, valued, loved, without condition or cost. Thank you for reading my story. I said to the darkness, though I knew you were listening, for witnessing what happens when invisible daughters finally step into the light. If you're carrying someone else's life on your shoulders while they call you selfish for having limits, know this love shouldn't cost everything you have. Family shouldn't require your invisibility, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling dysfunction and start modeling health. What would you do? I asked. If you discovered your sacrifices were not just unseen but rewritten to make you the villain, would you keep giving or finally say enough? Have you ever been the invisible one holding everyone up while being told you do nothing? Tell me your story. I'd love to know I'm not alone in this journey from invisible to seen. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need to hear that their worth isn't measured in what they sacrifice. Comment below with your own experiences of choosing visibility over invisibility, boundaries over burnout. Remember, you deserve to be seen, valued, and loved for who you are, not what you provide. Sometimes breaking the cycle means breaking away, and that's okay. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. Until next time, this is Elisa, no longer invisible, finally free. The end.